It is 10:02. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone studios. I'm Lucas Panzica. In NFL news, Eagles running back Saquon Barkley is now the highest paid running back in NFL history. After a record-setting season that ended with an Eagles Super Bowl, Saquon signs a 2-year extension with Philadelphia worth over $41 million, including $36 million guaranteed at signing. The Kansas City Chiefs are sending 32-year-old All-Pro guard Joe Thuney to the Chicago Bears in a trade in exchange for a 2026 fourth-round pick. College hoops last night, Vanderbilt fell at home to Arkansas, 90-77 on senior night. The Commodores fall to 20-10 on the year, 8-9 in SEC play. And number one, Auburn went down for only the second time in conference play, an 83-72 loss at Texas A&M. The Nashville Predators finished out their road trip, a 6-3 win at the Bruins. Steven Stamkos with a goal and 2 assists, ending a 13-game scoring drought. The SEC women's basketball tournament begins today in Greenville, Tennessee, taking on Texas A&M with tip-off right now. The winner faces Vanderbilt tomorrow. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
So everybody decided they were going to clear salary cap last night and today. You got transactions all over the place. You got trades going down. Always a good time in the NFL ahead of free agency. Free agency not too far in the distant future, but that's what teams are preparing themselves for. Now, if you're the Titans, you don't have to do a lot of work in that department. Got about somewhere between $44 and $50 million to work with, depending on which outlet that you are getting your armchair GM information from. But it is interesting to see some of the movement that has gone down in just the last 24 hours. Hell, not even 24 hours since the last time we were on air yesterday. Jamal Williams out with the Saints after 2 seasons. They're in the process of clearing cap. You got the Seahawks making a bunch of cuts yesterday, getting down about $27 million. Ahead of free agency, as Lucas mentioned, Saquon Barkley is now the NFL's highest paid running back, deservedly so. With his new contract, the Jets did release Davante Adams while we were on the air yesterday, so we will see what happens there. And the Bears are adding offensive linemen for Caleb Williams to try and solidify things up front of what they believe to be their franchise quarterback. Good morning, boys.
Good morning, and even in the last 90 seconds, Bengals defensive end Sam Hubbard has announced his retirement. Retirement at the age of 29. He'll be 30 in June. He was hurt in December. I believe he was hurt in the Titans game.
Yeah, he caught that touchdown pass and then tore his ACL.
PCL.
PCL.
And he missed the remainder of the season, finished the year with 2 sacks, but at the young age of 29, he hangs it up.
It's pretty crazy. I mean, imagine retiring at 29. And I know that Sam Hubbard probably has some plan as to what he wants to do at that point in his life, but, you're 29. You're ready to retire probably. You're the wrong person to ask.
I'm hanging it up, deleting all my social media, and I'm going to go live on a beach.
So,
who's the most surprising young retirement that you've seen? Maybe
Luck.
Calvin Johnson? Oh, well, of course, Luck, yeah. You're right. He's in a category of his own.
There's never been more shocking of a. I mean, I would argue, I don't know that I've ever been as surprised by anything in the NFL as I was Andrew Luck's retirement.
No, the answer is Andrew Luck.
But Calvin Johnson, were you surprised by that? They ran him off. The Detroit Lions, they're two biggest stars in the franchise's history.
He retired at a similar age, right? When he 29, 30?
I don't remember exactly how old. He wasn't much older than that.
2015, he hung it up, and he is currently 39 years old in 2025.
Yeah, so I wasn't surprised by that. They weren't winning, and he was tired of it, and his body hurt, and Matt Stafford was throwing him a bunch of contested catches that he had to make, and he's a pterodactyl. He'd go up and get it. He'd come crashing down to earth, and after a while, that starts to take a toll on you, especially if you're not getting anywhere. So I wasn't surprised by Calvin Johnson, but Luck was astonishing to me.
Do you guys remember the 49ers linebacker Chris Borland?
Yes.
It was like he was like 24 years old and was an awesome rookie for the 49ers.
It was a concussion-related thing, wasn't it?
It was either a concussion or a neck-related issue, but that one was also shocking to me because everyone was like, oh, here they go again. They had Patrick Willis. They had Navarro Bowman. Now they've got another young linebacker just going to fill in, and the dude was like, yeah, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah, he was a great player at Wisconsin, but he retired citing the concern of head trauma.
There you go.
After one season.
Somebody said, Isaiah Wilson. He's technically not retired, although, not a lot going on down there at this point in time. Daryl in the Borough says Barry Sanders easily was his most surprising retirement. And that would be more surprising than Calvin Johnson because prior to Barry Sanders, there wasn't a precedent for a player just being like, yeah, you know what, I'm done with this. It's enough. We're not getting as far as we need to based on how good I am at what it is that I do and how bad everybody else is around me to kind of drag teams to, NFC championship games and divisional rounds and things like that. The Lions with Barry Sanders, I would get that, especially at a time where that news wasn't instantaneous, right? Pre-social media, that stuff I'm sure was even more shocking when you'd find out in a newspaper or something like that Barry Sanders has retired.
So the news keeps coming down. The Texans are re-signing third down running back and special teamer Dario Gunbowale to a 1-year, $2 million deal. So there have been a lot of transactions. The most significant one, Saquon Barkley, highest paid running back in NFL history.
Yeah.
The most flashy one, for certain.
Yeah. I would say that's the most significant. It's the most headline-grabbing and the most significant.
Yes.
And he deserves it, certainly at this point in time. He gets a 2-year, $41.2 million extension from Philadelphia. He had a historic season. And like most of these things, you're paying for what they've done as opposed to what they will do. You're paying for that on the back end. And Saquon Barkley, what he just did is help deliver a Super Bowl to Philadelphia, their second in franchise history, and help put them in the record books with Saquon Barkley and with an Eagles jersey on him.
Robert, what could that mean for a potential Derrick Henry extension, you think?
He's making $7 million this year. Todd France should be ashamed of himself. Ashamed.
I think that's just the way it was stacked up. I think he still gets some cash up front, but like he talked about on the red carpet of the NFL honors, I believe, that he wanted to retire with Baltimore, that a lot of people took that in a different direction that he meant it. That he would just like to end his playing career in Baltimore.
Yeah. It was a mistake in the way that it was relayed on Twitter.
That's
Diana.
Correct. It was a quote rather than a video, so we didn't actually hear these words.
He was very upset about that.
But it just got a lot harder, right? I mean, as the second best running back in the NFL last year, you got to think, hey, if you really want to invest in me and bring me back for longer than this 2025 season, you're going to show me a pretty penny.
Yeah, second bet. You're right. I mean, other than Saquon Barkley having the most productive year in NFL history. I know he fell short of the Dickerson regular season record, but regular season playoffs combined, and nobody has ever done what Barkley did last year. Apart from that, Derrick Henry was the best running back in the NFL. So
he still is to me.
I mean, you could argue he is still the best runner of the football in the NFL. Although I don't know, man, the season that Saquon had.
It certainly puts Saquon in the conversation, but What Philadelphia benefited from, which Derek has just made routine, is they got the top 1% of Saquon Barkley healthy seasons. That never happens. Never happens. Derek is better than all of them to me because he has had the 1 year, 2021, where he had the stress fracture in his foot in Indianapolis. He finished that game out anyway. And then missed, 9 games as a result. Came back with a bolt in his foot to play in the divisional round with the Titans as the number 1 overall seed. And, we could go back and debate. We won't, but we could go back and debate whether or not Derek should have been the primary back in that game for as good as Deontay Foreman was at the time. But Derek, to me, is better than all of them because he's more sustainable than all of them.
To your point about Derek, Scott Barrett, great Twitter follow, by the way, if you don't follow him, Scott Barrett DFB, put out this yesterday. Henry had 3 more touchdowns and only 83 fewer rushing yards on 20 fewer carries than Saquon Barkley last year. He was also more efficient in yards per carry, 5.91 versus 5.81 by every other advanced metric. So he might not have been a better running back than Saquon Barkley, but he was a more efficient running back than Saquon Barkley.
Which is crazy because the whole thing with Derek for the past, while he was a Titan was, that's just not efficient. He's not efficient the way he does it. And then he'd break a 60-yard touchdown run and be like, bleep your efficiency.
He had more touchdowns than Saquon, and his yards per carry slightly better, 5.9 yards per carry, best of his career. His best with the Titans was 5.4 in 2020.
Saquon Barkley had the better season. Derrick Henry is the better running back, as far as I'm concerned.
It's an interesting debate.
Because if you ask me whether I thought Saquon Barkley, is what Saquon did repeatable? One would imagine that would be really difficult to do, yeah? Is what Derrick Henry did repeatable? The answer is for all time, yes, until he decides. It's my understanding he wants to play 2 more seasons, including this upcoming one, Bert. I don't know if that tracks with what his quotes in Baltimore have been.
I think most of the longevity talks about how long he wants to play have been other people throwing that on to him. I haven't heard Derek say how long he wants to play.
I think he kind of avoids the question, but people around Derrick Henry will tell you 2 years. 2 years is kind of what he's gunning for.
Sure.
And there's some record or some player who he's I think trying to surpass I can't remember exactly, but that has some significance that I can't remember off the top of my head.
And to your point about, is it repeatable? Saquon just had the most touches in his career with 378. He's never had even close to that any other season of his career. So can that, compounded with the injury issues before this year, is that something he can do sustainably, would be the question I have.
Listen, I'm the person who argued against giving Derrick Henry a contract. I will never doubt Derrick Henry again as long as I live because he is the exception to the rule. I would have been right, I think, with any other running back, but he is the exception to the rule. So I have tremendous respect for the player and for the person and for Saquon Barkley as well. Like I said, that contract is earned. Absolutely earned.
Yeah, they're paying him like it's going to be repeatable.
But I always with these contracts, because you get them cost effective on their rookie deals, right? And then you pay for what they've done on their rookie deals and what you think they might be able to continue to do at some rate. But how often do you see players get big money extensions and just never live up to them?
All the
never
time.
Really live up to them. 615-737-1045 is the number if you want to jump in throughout the course of the show. We would be happy to have your participation. You can also participate in the F&M Bank chat on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch. Coming up next, the free agent crop this year, less than ideal, but there are still some positions that the Titans could afford to add some free agents in, and we will talk about those coming up next. Bet on the game, not your retirement. Give Trajan Wealth a call today because you've definitely asked yourself the question of, will I have enough money when I retire? Or when should I start to draw from Social Security? If these questions keep you up at night, let me introduce you to a team that's there to keep you on the right track and guide you through it. That, of course, is Trajan Wealth. Trajan Wealth, not just any financial firm. They're your partners in securing your financial future. And they're more than just a fiduciary firm. They're a family-owned, veteran-led team that puts your needs first. So let their decades of experience specializing in retirement planning and wealth management work for you. Trajan Wealth offers free consultations to help you develop your plan and your peace of mind. So call them today at 615-270-5000. That's 615-270-5000 or visit them online at TrajanWealth.com. Advisory services offered through Trajan Wealth, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. This is a paid advertisement. So how do we feel about the free agents that are available for not just the Tennessee Titans to acquire this offseason, but just generally? It's pretty rare where you have a free agent quarterback who won 14 games last year, who had, 35 passing touchdowns?
Correct.
Did Sam Darnold? And he's not in the top 5 of available free agents in 2025.
Debatable.
Lists are, subjective for sure, because NFL.com does the top 100 free agents, ESPN does a top 100 free agents, on and on it goes, so there is some subjectivity to it.
It's like the draft, right? Are Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, is Cam Ward a bona fide top 10 prospect in this draft? Value of position aside.
Value of position aside?
It's debatable.
I would argue yes. There are some people who would argue no, but it is a conversation. You are correct.
Yeah, but is Cam Ward going to be picked within the top 10? Absolutely. He's probably going to be the number 1 pick in the draft.
Regardless of who makes
whether that's the Titans or someone that trades up.
But if I told you that, and obviously T. Higgins and Trey Smith are not available at this point in time. Both of them have been franchise tagged, and on most lists that you look, those are probably free agents number 1 and number 2. Milton Williams is a name that not a lot of people knew before the Super Bowl, except unless your name's Greg Cosell. And Greg Cosell was very astute in his analysis of the Eagles throughout the course of certainly doing the podcast. I'm sure he was talking about this elsewhere as well. But did you know that Milton Williams was a defensive tackle for the Philadelphia Eagles prior to the Super Bowl, Lucas?
Didn't know a whole lot about him.
Well, NFL.com has him as the 3rd best available free agent, all right? A player that is hardly a household name. Then Ronnie Stanley, the Ravens offensive tackle, who Bird is very scared that somebody's going to come in and swoop out from under him.
You're looking at what list?
NFL.com.
Okay. I have ESPN.com up.
Okay, so let's compare.
This is interesting. So
I'm going to give you the NFL.com top 5.
Okay, go ahead.
T. Higgins, Trey Smith, Milton Williams, Ronnie Stanley, Zach Bond.
How old is this?
Yesterday.
Okay, so I guess they're including players that have been tagged.
Yes.
I don't think ESPN is. So Matt Bowen's top 100 from yesterday has Ronnie Stanley number 1, DJ Reed, the former Jets corner, number 2, Chris Godwin 3, Darnold 4, Josh Sweat 5. Milton Williams he has at 6. He does not include Smith and Higgins who have been tagged.
You got to scroll down to 12. This is Greg Rosenthal of NFL.com. To find DJ Reed, the Jets corner. He's ranked below Charvarius Ward, who, if I'm not mistaken, MTSU product?
Correct.
Carlton Davis. So he's like the 3rd best corner on this list. Now, Matt Bowen is obviously an NFL analyst. He was on the NFL Matchup Show with Cosell for a long, long time. He's somebody whose analysis that I trust, and also I think Greg Rosenthal does. Greg does this list every year for NFL.com, and he's pretty thorough with it. But it's not as star-studded as years past, correct?
I'd agree with that. Though there are big names out there, like Devontae Adams, huge name.
Is
right?
now, and I don't believe that he is on this NFL.com list.
He
was just recently released.
He ranks 18th on this ESPN top 100 available free agents. Stephon Diggs, right? Like there are these guys that are sort of aging that you could still get something out of, but are getting up there at this point. I mean, Khalil Mack is 34. He'll be 34 going into the season. And
I'm so cool with the Titans signing Khalil Mack to a 1-year deal.
He's aged well. He has certainly aged well. He is the 7th ranked free agent on this ESPN list.
So I think, though, that this plays into what the Titans want to do anyway. Because even if there was a bunch of, stud name brand type of players in free agency this year, based on what we are learning about the Titans, we continue to learn about the Titans because this front office just got here. Selective in free agency would assume that you're not buying at the top of the market on a lot of these positions. Quarterback, wide receiver, corner, like they did last year, center. I think that there are still some players here that like Washington, and we've talked about this before, that you can sign to one-year deals to help fortify your roster while building out the bulk of your roster through the NFL draft. So just because it's not an incredible free agent class doesn't mean that you can't find key contributors here.
They still need good players. It doesn't have to be 100 or 0. It doesn't have to be 100 would be last offseason, or 0, which is hardly taking any swings.
So
Like,
what about,
just because they've said they're going to be selective, are we going to be shocked if they hand one player a decently sized contract?
Well, it depends on who that one player is. Because, yeah, Lucas, if they'd have given, say Trey Smith wouldn't have gotten tagged by the Titans. If they'd have given Trey Smith a giant deal, I would truly have been shocked by that. Because I know they need a right guard. I know he's the best right guard. But draft, develop, and retain for a non-premium position does not indicate that you're going to pay top of market for that right guard. So I would have been surprised by that.
Yeah.
If you're talking about,
selective at right guard would be Alex Kappa, right? Who the Bengals just released. And obviously would have
Zeitler,
familiarity
who's been
with
around
Callahan.
for a long time. He's what, Bert, 35, 34?
No, I think he turned 30 in January.
No.
Yeah, Alex.
He's got to be older than that. I'm talking about Zeitler.
Oh, I thought you said Alex Kappa.
Kappa is 30. Zeitler is almost 35.
Yes.
So, like those kind of players. Again, one-year deals for players who can contribute and potentially start for you or can start the year for you while you figure out what you've got in your draft class that you are going to work hard to acquire. But like Charles Omenihu of the Kansas City Chiefs, he's not some kind of stud pass rusher, but he can be a contributor to a good pass rush unit, which you are currently trying to build around Jeffrey Simmons, because that's what you're building around now. If I'm just operating under the assumption, I know Harold's still under contract until he's not. And for what it's worth, as teams clear cap space and allow a lot of these players to seek trades and aren't able to get trades done, so they just end up releasing them, Harold's still on the roster as of today. So maybe I shouldn't just operate under the assumption that Harold Landry is more likely than not, or more likely to not be on the Titans roster.
Yeah, I'm not operating under that assumption right now. Again, you would have to essentially start from scratch at edge rusher. And if you do end up loving one of these quarterbacks, you do end up wanting to take Cam Ward at 1. That takes you out of the Abdul Carter running.
Mm-hmm.
And so what direction do you go?
Well, it's a deep edge class. And that's what everybody will tell you.
Great. So you can depend on the second or fourth round pick to replace Harold Landry's production of 9 sacks last year. I know he wasn't great. It didn't maybe live up to the money.
I'm
but
not worried about the sack total. I know it seems blasé to say I'm not worried about the sack total.
Look,
for Harold Landry.
I understand your point about sacks being an overrated stat, and you're right about that. But production is production. My whole point is it's hard to imagine the Titans being a better pass rushing unit if they're going to get rid of Harold Landry and not draft Abdul Carter at the top of the draft.
Sure.
It's really hard to imagine a path forward for
that.
2025.
I'm just saying that I think you can find somebody that doesn't cost what Harold does that can get you 30 pressures. Because, that's the most amount of pressures anywhere that you could find for Harold Landry. 30 total pressures for a pass rusher.
That's basically what Josh Sweat gave the Eagles last year.
Yeah, but that's good for 104th.
Yeah, and he flashed in the Super Bowl. Sweat.
But Sweat, what's the difference between the way that Sweat is deployed for the Eagles and the way that Landry is deployed for the Titans? Harold plays the vast majority of the snaps, and Sweat does not. They platoon there. It's what makes them so efficient. It's what's allowed them, because they have a Nolan Smith, they have a Jalen Carter, they have all of Milton Williams, they have all these different players to go out there and allow those players to be the most efficient version of themselves instead of running Harold into the ground the way that the Titans have over the course of his career.
So what's the position in free agency you would most expect them to address? We can start with quarterback.
The obvious is the quarterback.
Like, that's one position that they assuredly are going to bring in somebody. And by the way, Raiders just released Gardner Minshew. New veteran bridge QB
I wanted him
dropped.
last year.
Talk about a guy that can start a few games.
Respectfully to Mason Rudolph, I was so in on the Minshew last year.
No available free agent quarterback has more experience starting with a rookie, sharing the room with a rookie, than Gardner Minshew. He did it with Trevor Lawrence. He did it with Aiden O'Connell. I can't remember if he did it in Indy. I don't think so.
Who got hurt in Indianapolis that Minshew ended up having to start?
Wentz? Was he there with Wentz?
I think that's right. But
Oh, no, he was there in 2023. He was there with Richardson.
Okay. So what? No, Richardson wasn't there in 2023. That was Richardson's rookie year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Richardson was drafted
and
with
then they
Will
brought
Levis.
Flacco in for the second year. Got it. Okay. I'm mixed up. So if we're going to take quarterback off the table, because they have no choice but to be involved in the free agent quarterback market, like regardless of Will Levis or Cam Ward or Sam Darnold or whatever, like they are going to be involved in the quarterback market. Interior offensive line is the next place that I would look, because I think that you can find starting caliber guard play in this free agent crop that's not going to, set your cap awry at a variety of different places, whether it's guys like Alex Kappa, Kevin Zeitler, who we've brought up, or if you scroll further down and talk about players who have got less experience but still have a level of upside. Safety is also a place that I would be curious to see them explore, because that right now, like I don't know how to pronounce his first name, but he's just a monster for San Francisco. Hufanga, he flies all over the place. He's an incredibly effective player. I think he was an All-Pro, at least if not last year, the year prior. Safety market is not going to be something that breaks your bank, right? So you can get involved in these non-premium positions, safety, off-ball linebacker, guard, in free agency with starting caliber players, and still draft players at those positions to fortify yourself. Because right now, we know this. We've been saying this for 3 off seasons. This will be the 4th. Not only do they need starting players, they need depth. They have neither. And that has been the thing that has, year in and year out, for the last 3 seasons, exposed them time and time again. So I'm not saying that you're going to put together an all-star roster that has both exceptional starting talent and exceptional depth, but you can at least make headway in that direction. And I think this free agent class allows you to do that to some extent. I would also say wide receiver.
I was about to say, the available wide receivers, it's an intriguing list. Big names at the very top, big names that are aging with Devontae Adams and Stephon Diggs.
Names, yeah.
Yes, Keenan Allen and Amari Cooper and Chris Godwin, who's 29, right, but coming off an injury. Brandon Cooks, who's getting up there, his production really dropped off a cliff in the last couple of years, or really just last year with Dallas. Deontay Johnson, who hopped around. But when you get further down, you start to get into Nelson Aguilar and Demarcus Robinson and just guys that have been depth pieces, Mac Hollins, for the last few years of their career. There will be options there. I think we're both in agreement, too, that they should bring back NWI.
They should also bring back Daniel Brunskill. He's an unrestricted free agent. I would be very surprised if Lloyd Cushenberry, I'm not looking at his medicals to say this, but just operating under the assumption that Achilles in November is tough to get back in time for week 1. It's not unheard of. It could happen. But Daniel Brunskill is both a guard and a center, and was their starting center after Lloyd Cushenberry went down. And while I know that he would have preferred to have been released prior to last season and potentially go somewhere else, I think that he is somebody who provides them quality snaps. I think that Bill Callahan being here is an asset to not just acquiring people, but to retaining people. If you're interested in that, I'd rather have Brunskill over Dylan Radins.
There will almost certainly be insurance brought in the interior of the offensive line. Someone that can play center if Cushenberry is not available from the jump.
Well, Corey Levin is still here. Well, not here. I guess he's also an unrestricted free agent. But Corey Levin is somebody that they have familiarity with, who's been on this roster a handful of times at this point. This is, but Brunskill is the best of those insurance policies, right? Because he knows the system. I think continuity in the system matters here.
Can play center, can play guard.
Continuity in the system matters here. So that's kind of where I'm at with this free agency class, because we've talked about this. Daniel Jeremiah said not really a lot on the used car lot this time around, and that's fine. But there are still pieces that you can plug in here. And I think when they're talking about selective in free agency, Lucas, it's not just like top of market items. It's the kind of deals that they're signing, the length of the deals that they're signing these players to. Cushenberry got 4. Snead got 4. Ridley got 4. Cheeto got 3. You're tied up in guaranteed money in years on those players, one way or the other, and some may work out and some may not. But I think this giving themselves more financial flexibility in years to come beyond tying themselves to a couple of free agents for the long term, which is why I think, and I think that a couple of people have expressed this sentiment. It's why Darnold makes the least amount of sense to me, because I don't think a long-term deal with Darnold is something that Mike Borgonzi or Chad Brinker are interested in at all.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see just how much of a long-term deal Darnold ends up getting. Like, what was, when you think about the reclamation projects that have found success, I mean, Darnold and Baker are the headliners of it. And I guess Darnold is no longer a reclamation project, right? He has been reclaimed.
He's been reclaimed. And now, is he going to continue to, make that progress in the right direction, or is he going to revert back to I'm seeing ghosts?
So once Baker was established as a reclaimed player, he signed a 3-year, $100 million contract with the Bucs.
So who's the next one? I mean, we talked about it a little bit yesterday. Or are you talking about what's the contract look like?
For Darnold, everybody's talking about it in that $40 million range. I get what you're saying, but selective can also mean being selective on where you spend big.
Mm-hmm.
And the most important position at quarterback could be that. I'm trying to think of where else the Titans could spend at the top of the market because, yeah, we don't think they're going to spend top of market at multiple positions like they did last year. That would run counter to what they're saying.
I would be surprised. Genuinely, I would be surprised. And it doesn't mean that they can't hand out a big contract, but top of market, I would be surprised if they spent anywhere at the top of the market this year.
Then what would be the closest thing to it? If a Darnold deal is not in the cards, which we could talk about later, what would be a quarterback aside, what would be the closest to top of market? What position?
Pass rush. Because that's going to be expensive no matter where those players are in their career. That's going to come with a substantial amount of guaranteed money.
Khalil Mack, it kind of tops the list of best available edge rushers. And again, he's really getting up there. He's 34 years old. Spotrac has his market value.
I think Josh Sweat is better at this point in his career than Khalil Mack is.
Spotrac has max value of average annual salary at over 23 per year. Josh Sweat, who is about to be 28, his value is listed at $18.8 million per year.
I wonder if the depth in the draft and the depth in free agency, because free agency is also a sneaky deep edge class. I wonder if that gives the Titans pause as we'll see what can fall to us in free agency because we'll have the opportunity to select one of these guys in the draft. It's a deeper class. I wonder if that impacts their free agent strategy.
Well, it's kind of why I would push back on what Lucas is saying about it's tougher to imagine that the Titans pass rush would get better without Harold Landry and if they don't draft Abdul Carter. But there are ways to improve one of the worst pass rush units in the sport via free agency and this draft class. So I get what you're saying. It is absolutely tougher to imagine that, but it's not impossible. And in fact, I think it's rather likely. Now they can still keep Harold. There's nothing to stop them from keeping Harold. But as soon as you see that headline, that's not Harold Landry asking out. That's the Titans being like, yeah, we're good with life after Harold Landry. 615-737-1045 is the number. What positions do you think the Titans would be best served addressing in free agency, which is not too far in the distant future at this point in time, versus the draft? We will also do some SEC observations next.
We do have SEC basketball happening right now. The women's tournament is underway in Greenville, South Carolina. Tennessee up 25-17 over Texas A&M with over 3 minutes left in the second quarter. Winner moves on to play Vanderbilt. Tomorrow, the Commodores finish the season strong, put up 100 against Mizzou over the weekend. Michaela Blakes, again, 29 points. She is deservedly the SEC Freshman of the Year. So postseason hoops has officially begun on the women's side. On the men's side, there is still the remainder of the week left in the regular season. Last night was kind of a big night. Auburn goes down. Number 1 Auburn at Texas A&M. We talk about it every time Texas A&M comes up, whether it was against Tennessee or Vandy. Best offensive rebounding team in the country, and they destroyed Auburn on the offensive glass. 24-9 last night, 83-72. But this doesn't even feel like that big a deal to me because I know it's Auburn's the number 1 team in the country, but
it's only their second SEC loss of the year.
That's what I'm saying. Surely they weren't going to finish the season with 1 loss in conference play at the level that this conference has been at all year long.
No, they're really good.
They are really good. So a hat tip to Texas A&M, who needed this win, by the way. They lost to Tennessee, Vanderbilt, Florida. They were starting to slide, so a huge win for them against the number 1 team in the country. And Auburn picks up their 3rd loss of the year, 2nd loss in SEC play. The reason I say it's a huge deal for A&M, no doubt. But, Joe Lunardi said the other day, Auburn could forfeit the rest of their games and still be the number 1 overall seed. That's how ridiculous their resume is. So they could lose this weekend. They could go one and done in the SEC tournament and still be the top seed overall in the NCAA tournament. Auburn this weekend plays Alabama. Rematch at Auburn. That's going to be a fun game Saturday afternoon at 1:30. Also last night, Texas beats Mississippi State in overtime. That was an incredibly fun game. Texas with a meltdown and then able to hang on and win. Vanderbilt, though, could not get it done at home against Arkansas. The Commodores have been really strong at home this year. They were down double digits for really the majority of this game, 90-77. They lose to Coach Cal in Arkansas, who is 18-12, is probably going to need to do something in the SEC tournament to have a shot at the NCAA tournament. Are we willing to say Vanderbilt is in? We were saying that the other day.
Yeah.
You think no matter what, they're in the NCAA tournament?
Maybe not no matter what, but I'd give them a 85% chance of being in the tournament.
Sounds about right.
I think that's reasonable.
I think they deserve to be in. They are a 20-win team. They are right at that 500 range, 8-9 in SEC play. In the current state of this league, I think that should be good enough to get you in. They're at Georgia Saturday, who also has been playing for their NCAA tournament live. So that is a big game for both of those teams. Even if we feel good about Vandy, a road win at Georgia could really help on the way out of the regular season. Big night tonight. Tennessee is at Ole Miss. So I feel better about Vanderbilt being in the NCAA tournament than I do Tennessee being locked in as a 1 seed. I don't think Tennessee's not locked in as a 1 seed.
No, not by any stretch of the imagination.
They are currently the number 4 overall seed from Joe Lunardi's latest bracketology, and they are at Ole Miss tonight, and then a chance to finish out the season against a bottom-tier team in the SEC this year in South Carolina at home on Saturday. If Tennessee wins out, they take care of business tonight where they are 2.5-point favorites at Ole Miss, who fell out of the top 25 over the weekend. If Tennessee takes care of business tonight and Saturday, I think they are a 1 seed no matter what they do in the SEC tournament. But it is anything but a guarantee at this point. That is an 8 p.m. tip-off tonight on ESPN2. Of course, you can hear it right here on The Zone. Vol Network coverage starts at 7:30.
I would like to present a new name. We have too many SEC observation, SEC stat of the day. I would like to present a new segment, name that we could change one of these two. Are you open to that? Are either one of you open to receiving that idea?
Me, open-minded, hardly.
Okay, so here we go. Let me paint a picture for you. Dark and spooky music, thunder's crashing in the background, a dark house on the hill with only one light on. Ooh, welcome into Lucas's Sec Dungeon.
Oh, my God. You are a heathen.
Step into the Sec Dungeon.
I support you in everything you do. I feel betrayed.
What do you mean?
That is
I
horrific.
could laugh harder right now instead of gasping and wheezing for air because my vocal cords are failing me. I am so down with
Not
Lucas's
enough.
Sec dungeon.
That is a horrific idea.
Just
I am
thunder
appalled by
crash.
this idea.
What kind of tools does he have in the sec dungeon?
See, what I was thinking is I could go find some SEC coaches screaming like, ah! And just use those to accent the imaging. You know what I mean? I don't see anything wrong with it.
Well, I mean, as long as he's got his AirPods out.
I'm disgusted
Well,
by
you're
both of you.
Not a big fan of the sec dungeon. I think it's
What's your favorite toy in the sec dungeon, Lucas?
Disgusted.
you can't. You don't have a stat you can pull. It could take SEC stat of the day. You know. Oh, step into this treasure trove of sex stats.
All right, now you're getting too blunt.
Starting to infringe.
Sec stats sounds too much like sex stats.
What?
No.
What?
No.
Oh, that's not where you're taking this?
No,
I
it's.
thought we were
I just
doing a
wanted
sex
to give
bit.
it a different. You're disgusting.
Oh.
Is that what you thought I was talking about?
I mean, I assumed.
Get your mind out of the gutter. We're a professional radio. You think I would have Lucas's sex dungeon? You think I'd really pitch that?
I mean, again, famously, he practices safe sec with his AirPods in while listening to...
You in the chat are ridiculous. In the sec dungeon, what is the safe word? What is that?
Our reputation as a family show is taking a major hit right now.
Instead of
Listen, if families are listening to this show, that's on them.
instead of help, it could be helpful, like hypel. You know, that's our safe
Helpful.
word. You're all disgusting. I was simply trying to change the imaging and give the segment a different vibe.
I want to recuse myself from the rest of the show.
No, I'm going to recuse you to stay. I don't know what that word means.
Banana. That a better safe word?
Inbound pass. You have to use a sports term.
Oh.
You should all be ashamed of yourselves.
Penetration?
The defense. Struggling.
penetrating- yeah, penetrating.
Exactly.
Nothing? You got nothing on
I
that?
feel like you're going to drag us into the
Go
mud
home
here,
and look yourself in the mirror.
and I'm going to get in
and
trouble.
ask yourself what you've turned yourself into. As you look yourself in the mirror, that I imagine Mike Vrabel's face is taped on with your wannabe Vrabel mustache.
I told you I was
You
bringing
went
the
back to
mustache
the
back.
Vrabel mustache.
I like the mustache. The only reason I didn't have a mustache is because I didn't. That's what it looks like when I don't shave the rest of it for 2 weeks.
He's never going to love you, Buck.
We're going to have to start calling you Frabel, like fake Vrabel.
I like that.
Buck Frabel.
You quit laughing so much or I'll start making sex jokes again.
Faux Vrabel.
Oh, my goodness. All right. Any more basketball thoughts?
No, not
you're
anymore.
done?
Lady Vols up 32-19, approaching
He
halftime.
doesn't know what else to do, so he just pivots into play-by-play that somebody else is doing.
Yep, I've got nothing. Big game tonight in Tuscaloosa. Number 5, Florida. Number 7, Alabama.
Push. It's perfect.
At 6 p.m., different sport. You're losing the plot now.
That's fine.
Terribly executed.
I mean, what is this radio show if not terribly executed? All right. Speaking of execution, we got a prize. You got something back there in the nebulous prize bucket to give away for the dumbest thing in sports this week?
I'm sure we do. I'll have to check in the spooky closet next time on Lucas's
Oh, my
Sec
God.
Dungeon.
This is horrific. This is
Ooh,
absolutely horrific.
You better watch out. You never know what could happen down here.
I was so excited to have Robert back on the show.
Yeah, well, spoke too soon. Do you actually have nothing?
I haven't checked yet.
Okay, very good. We'll do the dumbest thing in sports this week. If you want to get in, not knowing what the prize is, we'll tell you here in just a couple of minutes. 615-737-1045, the number. If you tell us what the dumbest thing in sports this week is. Woo!
Horrible. It is 10:59. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone studios. I'm Lucas Panzica. In NFL news, Eagles running back Saquon Barkley is now the highest paid running back in NFL history after a record-setting season that ended with an Eagles Super Bowl with a 2-year contract extension worth over $41 million, including $36 million guaranteed at signing. The Kansas City Chiefs are sending 32-year-old All-Pro guard Joe Thuney to the Chicago Bears in a trade in exchange for a 2026 fourth-round pick. The SEC Women's Tournament start today in Greenville, South Carolina. Tennessee and Texas A&M going head-to-head. It is halftime. The Lady Vols leading A&M 32-19. The winner moves on to face Vanderbilt tomorrow. And tonight, number 4 Tennessee is at Ole Miss. An 8 p.m. tip-off. All network coverage on the Zone begins at 7:30. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Indeed, it is. 615-737-1045 is the number. If you want to join in, we'd be happy to have you. What is the dumbest thing in sports this week? It can be sports directly related. It can be sports adjacent. If you're so inclined, 615-737-1045. Go ahead, Lucas.
I love when you do that because you are completely unprepared and don't have one. My dumbest thing in sports
TMZ
this week.
Vigorously. Well, I had a J.D. Vance one, but then I kind of got into it. And I was like, I don't want to deal with this today.
My dumbest thing in sports this week continues to be the College Football Playoff Selection Committee. And, they weren't going to change their approach for 2025, but yet still there is news about new members of the committee. It does include, by the way, Middle Tennessee State Athletic Director Chris Massaro, as well as former Michigan State head coach Mark D'Antonio, one of 5 new CFP Selection Committee members, named to the 13-member group that, of course, is tasked with ranking the top 25 that ultimately considers the 12-team field in the college football playoff. But my dumbest thing in sports this week continues to be the College Football Playoff Committee being led by an active athletic director of a college football program. Now it is Maryland athletic director Damon Evans. I suppose that's slightly better than a program like Michigan, who, figures to be in that discussion more often than a program like Maryland. But I still hate the concept of a committee that determines the 12-team college football playoff field being led by an active athletic director. This idea that this person will be able to put all of those biases aside and do nothing for the self-interest of his own program. And Maryland's not going to be in the college football playoff anytime soon, but it ties into the ACC and how many bids the ACC can get, and it just creates that unnecessary conversation like it did last year with Ward Manuel at every turn. A current and active athletic director should never, ever, ever be the one communicating to us the reasons why certain teams are in or out of the college football playoff. It's insanity.
It's a good one.
Would you like me to go because you're also unprepared?
No, I mean, I have one. I just, it's just something that we've been talking about all week.
Okay, then you go. Go ahead and get it out of the way. So my dumbest thing in sports is that I don't know if you guys are familiar with 37U football, but it is all I watch on Instagram Reels. It is, for lack of a better term, as I understand it, it is 37 and up football, where grown-ass men who have regular day jobs work at gas stations, food lines, wherever the hell people work at, and they will come out here and play in pads and tackle the hell out of each other. If you haven't watched it, you need to go watch some 37U highlights. My dumbest thing in sports is that there is not a 37U league, organization, team, foundation anywhere near Nashville because I would pay upwards of $20 a ticket to go watch grown men collide into each other, and as they get hurt, go, I got to go to work tomorrow. I got to stock shelves tomorrow. There is nothing I would like more than to watch men whose dreams have crumbled in front of them, but they still have that fire. They still have that light inside them that's saying, somebody's going to see this highlight. Somebody's going to see me lay this pancake block. Somebody's going to see me tackle this guy's helmet off, and they're going to give me a shot. They're going to give me a chance to be on the Tennessee Titans or even an Arena League football team. I would be down with any of that. I love untrained people doing difficult things. I mean, someone's going to get hurt.
Like this by the show.
That's what this is.
That's exactly what this is.
I would be. I am upset. That is my dumbest thing in sports, that there is not a 37U league around here so I can watch grown men collide into each other.
TK on YouTube says, just dudes playing for the love of the game like God intended. No money involved, just passion and heart.
I can only imagine the fights that started those things, too, where it's like people who, there's more than just pride on the line.
I told you, I've seen this because in college, I interned for a semi-professional football team, the Indiana Cutters. And while I have, a level of respect for the people that wanted to participate in that and who paid, not got paid, but who paid to participate in that and to travel from places from Bloomington to Evansville, Indiana, and played a semi-pro football game on my high school football field.
I love that.
Like full-on tackle football.
I'm telling you, it is.
With a lot less regulations than American college or professional football.
You think the officials in the pros are bad? Just wait till you get to semi-pro. Okay?
Well, they also have they're playing in the game following that one. So I mean, of course, there's going to be biased officiating. But also, my biggest thing with that is what you talked about them being the Cutters. They have to be good if your nickname is already so close to an insult. We got the Turd Cutters this week. Like if you're on the Cutters, you better be badass. You better not miss a block. You better not miss a tackle. You better not drop a punt because the Turd Cutter chants, Turd Cutter, would come out as soon as this is bad. I would just like to be a heckler. I would just like to. The only problem is there's no safety involved. I would probably get my neck wrung like Bart Simpson. Someone would just grab me and strangle me.
I'd petition for this show to be the official broadcast partner of the U37 League.
No.
Would you volunteer to call those games?
Lucas will do play-by-play. I'll do sideline.
I was going to say, Robert is the analyst.
Oh, I would love that so much.
And we could do all the marketing for it, too. Yeah.
We
do you want arthritis to set in 20 years earlier than the average American?
I know
We've got a
bunch of you
league
guys,
for you.
A bunch
do
of
you
you
have
guys
too much cartilage in your knee?
Trying to get rid of some of that cartilage?
You over 37 and you ain't got enough back pain? Come on down. We'll put you on punt coverage.
You want to know what it's like to get a concussion?
You ever felt I don't get to hit people in real life?
For sure those dudes did because I was the one responsible for equipment. God knows I didn't know what I was doing as far as that went.
A man in the chat named Tino Ugaz says, look up MTFL. I played for 7 years in that league. I'm surprised you had no spelling mistakes in that, my guy. Also, look up Tennessee Stars. Okay, now we're getting some leads, dude.
I want nothing to do with this. It's just going to make me sad.
No, it's not. Yeah, it's people getting to live their dreams, man. It's just like going to a local professional wrestling show that's not affiliated with one of the heavy hitters. You are going to see guys there who have been wrestling since they were 18, thinking one day they're going to make it to the big time. One day Vince McMahon's going to offer me a contract. And they're just hanging around. And they have the best names that you've ever heard. We have to either go to a 37U game or go to a local professional wrestling match.
Jordan Sims says Lucas wants to do this to build up his resume to be the voice of the Titans. It's going to be very awkward when Titans team president Bert Nihill comes in here tomorrow and I ask him why he hasn't been responding to Lucas's emails. I can't wait for that.
I don't even have his email.
I've been waiting please.
Between that and Lucas Bamzika, I think we're going to really solidify you as a candidate for this gig.
My dumbest thing in sports this week is...
Oh, it could be me thinking that Maryland was in the ACC, even though they haven't been for a decade.
It's been a minute.
Oh, did you say that?
I did.
I totally glossed over that.
Freudian slip.
Oh, I missed that. They should be in the ACC.
I think it was in high school when they went to the Big Ten.
That's neither here nor there. The dumbest thing in sports this week is the annual draft slander. This is happening to Shedeur Sanders right now, where people are leaking things to outlets like Todd McShay, for example. You've heard other NFL reporters coming out of the combine in Indianapolis talking about Shedeur specifically. and the attitude that he brought, or the lack of professionalism that he brought to some of the interviews that he participated in. Even if that is true, if the player is good enough, it doesn't matter. We brought back yesterday the story of Lance Zierlein talking about C.J. Stroud's meeting with the Houston Texans and how C.J. Stroud was convinced that he wasn't going to the Houston Texans because the meeting went so poorly and because that information was getting out in the media. I heard J.J. Watt on the Dan Patrick show talking about the same thing, that the Texans defensive line coach was so mean to him during the pre-draft process that he was convinced that the Houston Texans were not going to take him, even though he felt like he interviewed so poorly, and stuff started to get out in the media about that. These things are toxic, they're poisonous, they are detrimental, and at the root of it is these people are children. I mean, Shedeur Sanders is a child. I understand that people don't look at NFL football players or college football players, future NFL football players that way, but at the end of the day, you are using a cowardly method to attack a young adult's character. I won't call them children because they're not outright children, but to attack a young adult's character in the media without having to put your name on it. It is one of my least favorite things about covering the NFL. It is one of my least favorite things about the draft cycle. It is the dumbest thing in sports this week. New guy have one, or is he too scared?
Ross, you got one for us?
Yeah, not so much this week, but just this time of year in general. I think people talking about expanding the NCAA tournament to more teams is ridiculous. March Madness is perfect as it is, and I saw that they're probably not going to resume talking about it till 2026, but however, I just think any sort of notion that we should expand the NCAA tournament to 72 or 76 teams is stupid. You don't ruin something that's perfectly set up, and people are going to be pissed every year that their team didn't make it, or there's going to be some teams that people thought shouldn't make it. So just how it goes, man.
It's a good one.
Has anybody ever sounded more like a Ross than Ross?
He doesn't he sound like he could help you carry all your groceries in one trip? He is a very strong boy.
Hey, when you grow up playing video games and mom brings home the groceries, you make sure you get it up in one trip so you can get back on. Everybody knows that.
So you can get back on
the game, on Fortnite, whatever.
I lost $1 underneath the fridge earlier, and he picked it up for me so I could get the $1 back.
Picked up the fridge, not the dollar.
Yes,
That's right.
yes,
That's right.
Like the whole fridge, one-handed.
Here, let me get that for you.
He was holding it like a pizza boy on his hand.
Fun fact, I covered Ross as a high school football player at Ravenwood High School.
Find him. That's
a few
fine.
years ago.
That's a fun.
Nah, come on.
That
He's
is
just
in no
talking
way
about
a
his
fine.
connection to the
That's absolutely a
local
fine.
community.
It has nothing to do with trying to associate myself with people that do not associate with me. That's what the fine system was made for.
I'm doing this to placate Buck.
To what?
Placate. Wrong word. Wrong saying.
Why can we not pronounce words as a show?
Because we got to talk, dude. I don't know. It's not easy, man. I went through a whole
That's
hour.
literally our job.
Nobody said it was easy. Just like
Shut up. 615-737-1045. What's the dumbest thing in sports this week? For no prize this week because somebody forgot to put the prize in the prize bucket?
No, that's not true. Apparently, we will have a prize on the other side. It's on the way up here via pigeon.
What?
It's on the way. That's all I was trying to say, dude. Just throw the break. What are we doing?
So I have a prize, but I still don't know what the prize is, and I have to delay this stupid segment even longer because somebody was late with the prize?
You're acting like that was me.
I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
Friends, if you're new to Nashville or you've been here a long time, the odds are that you've got a clean-out project that the missus would like to see done by the spring, and it's early March. It's fast approaching. The most reliable folks I know that can help you are the folks over at J&J Services. For over 20 years, J&J Services have been providing dumpsters for local businesses, construction sites, home cleanouts, and demolitions. They provide commercial dumpster service for your favorite restaurants and convenience stores. They provide roll-off dumpster service for everyone from 60-story high-rises to your neighbor's farm. J&J Services can also offer trash compactors, making those large loads a little bit smaller. They can even supply you with porta potties for a special event. For the safest, most reliable service you can get in Middle Tennessee, call them for a free quote at 615-599-7778, jnjservices.com, where they always keep it trashy.
All right, this segment was supposed to start at 11 o'clock. 18 minutes later, we have a prize. What do you have?
It's a pretty good one. 2 tickets to see Nelly at the Ascend Amphitheater September 16th. So you got a little bit time to plan, time to find you a date, time to find you old gal to take with you.
615-737-1045. It's the dumbest thing in sports this week. You want the tickets? You tell us what the dumbest thing in sports this week is. Let's start with Quinn.
Hey, so my dumbest thing in sports this week, it goes to the hardwood. Nico Harrison. My dumbest thing in sports is how this Luka Doncic trade just keeps getting worse for this guy. It just keeps getting worse with Kyrie being out. You know, he traded away Luka. AD is out. It just keeps getting worse. So that would be my dumbest thing in sports this week, next week, forever, forever and ever. That's it. That's all I got, guys.
It's a great one.
Yep.
Honestly, if we hadn't talked about it for yesterday, it would have been my dumbest thing in sports this week. It's compounded by the fact that they plan to raise ticket prices next year.
Mm-hmm. Great timing.
I mean, I shouldn't laugh because, again, you are months removed from competing for an NBA title and losing to the Lakers.
You know who I feel bad for?
Or not the Lakers, I'm sorry, the Celtics.
Klay Thompson.
Yeah.
Who arrives in Dallas thinking he's going to compete for a championship, a team that was just in the finals, joining up with Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. And now he's Will Smith in the Fresh Prince looking around an empty room.
Sad.
Even the guy they brought in the Luka trade isn't around because he's injured.
Noah is up next. Hey, Noah.
Noah, not a Nelly fan, apparently.
What do you think happened there?
Oh, did Quinn drop off too?
Yeah.
Nobody wants the Nelly tickets. Nobody's getting the Nelly tickets.
Guess me and Lucas are going to go see Nelly.
Well, you can do that instead of going to the Cat Williams show that I told you I'd take you to. And
shut up. This is the problem with Buck. Buck likes to look like a magnanimous host to the people that, I want to give back to you guys. I want to help you guys. We need to find a show to go to. And I was like, we should go to this Cat Williams show. Then yesterday, this goober alert gets on the talk back and is like, I can't wait to go see Cat Williams this weekend. You haven't seen Pimp Chronicles. You haven't seen Pimpin' Pimpin'. You don't know you don't know the history of Cat Williams.
I saw the podcast he did with Shannon Sharp.
Oh my God.
Are you serious? You never watched Cat Williams stand up?
I saw Cat Williams stand up when I mean that was like the thing that you weren't allowed to watch in like grade school, Cat Williams stand up, because it was some of the most electric, some of the most foul stuff I've ever heard in my, at that time, young life. But the wonderful people at Two Rivers Ford are taking me to Cat Williams. So
well, listen, wonderful people at Two Rivers Ford, you should get him an extra ticket because he didn't even know he thought he was going to go see Dog
ticket.
the Bounty Hunter. I was like, no, it's
an extra ticket.
Well, my tone has changed, Buck. I really do appreciate how much you do for Lucas and I on the show. I really appreciate the opportunities you present us with. Like
what opportunities?
The sect dungeon, the sect he's allowing us to go forward with that. You're just a really giving and gracious guy, and I've always appreciated the camaraderie and friendship that we have.
I could not disagree more.
You would still be wheeling around promotional stuff if not for me. The extra ticket is going to Grace.
That's what you've been in addition to.
No,
I'm back on the hate Buck train.
Should we do the actual segment that we planned here now?
If you want.
Quarterback resurgence candidates, because the Titans are obviously in the business of quarterbacks, and they are going to need to find a quarterback plan, and there's a number of different ways that they can go about the quarterback plan. So have you prepared a list? Have you compiled a list of resurgence candidates that the Titans should consider? How are we going to do this?
This is a list of quarterback resurgence candidates. I don't know that it is something that should be in consideration for the Titans. Like we said, the QBs that have found some sort of resurgence in their careers have oftentimes done it after multiple stops in between, in the case of Baker and Sam Darnold, and have done it once they landed in stable situations, plug-and-play situations, right? Like Baker arrives in Tampa, Sam Darnold arrives in Minnesota in a spot where he was able to play some good football with the Panthers. He was able to sit and learn from a Kyle Shanahan system. And then he goes to Minnesota where he's not just handed the keys. He's supposed to be the veteran that is there to help them with the transition with the first round pick that they have in J.J. McCarthy. It just so happens that McCarthy has a meniscus injury that rules him out for his rookie year, and Darnold plays better than anybody could have envisioned. So this is not to say the Titans are a great landing spot for a quarterback resurgence candidate, but it is an interesting conversation because now teams are going to be scrambling to try to find that Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, Geno Smith. And those guys, with the exception of Geno, have something in common, right? They were top 5 picks. Incredibly talented prospects coming out. So there is a list of 5 former first-round picks here that I think pretty much make up the list of QB resurgence candidates. And that is made up of Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, Mac Jones, Daniel Jones, and Trey Lance. I don't think any other free agent quarterback falls under that category of somebody that could find a resurgence in their career.
So out on the Brissett renaissance, huh?
That's not a resurgence. Jacoby Brissett is who he is, right? I mean, you can look down the list, like Marcus Mariota, but he's not going to come back here, obviously. And
Titans legend.
I think Marcus Mariota is kind of who he is as a backup quarterback in this league. I don't think anybody's talking about Mariota being a potential starter anywhere.
No. They tried that in Atlanta. It didn't work.
So, to me, that's the list, right? Like, Jameis Winston's not on that list because he is what he is in the NFL. But Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, Mac Jones, and Daniel Jones, I think still have a chance to kind of write their story of their careers. I don't think it's done and dusted, and especially not after what happened with Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield.
I think, so it's interesting to have this conversation because famously the Titans had one of the best, before we were even talking about Geno or Baker or Sam Darnold, the Titans had one of the best reclamation project quarterbacks in any sense.
And Tannehill.
I would argue that he is the most successful out of any of them.
He got further than any of them, but I would not argue that. Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold have had better seasons as a passer than any of the years Tannehill. Tannehill was in an incredible situation.
He didn't have to have the seasons that they did as a passer because he had Derek.
Yeah, exactly. So, did the Titans get to the AFC Championship? Once they got to the playoffs, did they get to the AFC Championship more because of Tannehill or more because of Henry?
That year, Derek, absolutely.
Right.
Well,
so
Derek, Rodgers, Saffold, and Taylor Lewan, to be honest.
Yeah, I think with Baker and Darnold, you're talking about guys that help drive the success. And Tannehill did that here, no question, but just different scenario.
I still argue that he's more successful than any of them because he has gone farther in the playoffs than any of them, and he was a huge part of that. And then went on to get a number 1 overall seed in the conference. I haven't seen Geno Smith or Baker Mayfield do that with a collection of parts and pieces around him that were terrible. And, well, maybe not terrible, but were injured, all the pieces that were supposed to be around him. Had one of the best seasons. I mean, he had the best statistical season in the Titans era in 2020. That's not something that Geno or Baker have done for their respective franchises. I think Tannehill's the most successful reclamation project of anybody that you just named, but I get it.
Yeah, but then the goalposts are kind of moved there, right? Like Sam Darnold did something statistically that no Titans quarterback has really come that close to with a 4,300-yard passing season.
But his circumstance is different. It's not moving the goalposts. It's just taking each individual thing and kind of looking how they match up. And I think Tannehill's resume versus the other guys, we don't have to get bogged down in this, but Tannehill's resume is better than the other three based on the reclamation project that they were. Because they left Tannehill for dead in Miami.
They did, 100%.
They couldn't wait to get rid of him. They paid his salary for him to come here.
Yeah.
But here's the thing that I think we have to take into consideration if the Titans are going to now be in the mix for a reclamation project quarterback. Because for all the guys that you just named, there's also Carson Wentz that didn't successfully do it. There's Jameis Winston.
Yeah.
There's Marcus. There's Justin Fields, who had a chance but got benched.
No, I think he still is a candidate for that type of resurgence.
I agree, but he had his first chance at this, just as Darnold and Baker did in Carolina, for example, right? It doesn't have to be the immediate next stop that you take.
It often isn't.
Well, I think there has to, which is why I think this is an interesting conversation, because you have to have some pretty key ingredients, some necessary parts and pieces for that successful quarterback reclamation to happen. Because there's Josh Rosens and Paxton Lynch's and Mitch Trubisky's littered all over the place that aren't just a handful of the quarterbacks that you just named. So what do you need to have, first and foremost, for this to be a successful situation, specific to Tennessee? Does the quarterback actually have to be good?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That's a good starting point. Right. We're talking baseline. I'm talking every phase of this. Because Tannehill was not regarded as good when he left Miami, and then he changed the narrative about himself. Baker was good for what the Cleveland Browns had been able to accomplish and relative to what the Browns were accomplished, but he wasn't good enough to stay in Cleveland, right? They were pretty quick to move on from Baker Mayfield after he got him to the postseason for the first time in God knows how long. Geno, we didn't really have evidence that Geno Smith was a good quarterback prior to the Geno-sance, which, again, took multiple stops. He was a Giant and a Charger and maybe another stop in there before he was a Seahawk.
And he had to sit behind Russ.
Right. So they have to have, all of these players, if they're first-round draft picks, have some level of talent. But the question is talent versus skill, and can you get there? And then also there has to be attention paid to why these things didn't work in their previous stops. So that's a harder conversation to have because those are more forgettable tenures. Why did it not work out for Baker Mayfield in Carolina? Was Matt Rule the problem? Was Baker the problem? Was the system the problem? Was the roster the problem? What are the components that saw Baker Mayfield not succeed there, but then get cut from Carolina, go to Los Angeles with McVay, I think midweek, right, when he won a Sunday night or a Monday night football game against, I can't remember the team that he beat, but Baker had like a really nice game. Now, it didn't end up working out for Baker in Los Angeles that way. But there's a couple of key components. So why did it not work?
Well, he got hurt. He had a high ankle sprain pretty early on. He competed with
Darnold.
In Carolina. He and Darnold were in competition for the starting job. Baker got hurt, and shortly after that, and he played a little more after the ankle injury. But yeah, I mean, he didn't play great football. P.J. Walker was starting at one point. Sam Darnold played better football for the Panthers in 2022 than Baker did. Like, Sam Darnold played pretty decent football for the Panthers in 2022. Went 4-2 as a starter.
It started a lot better than it finished.
Baker requested his release from the
Carolina.
Panthers, and then the Rams scooped him up.
So, what happened in the previous stops mattered. So, of all the different quarterbacks that you just named on the potential next reclamation project, whose situation can you most pinpoint was the circumstances around them versus their own failures?
Zach Wilson, probably.
A product of the Jets.
Yeah. Someone like Trey Lance is someone that just might not be good enough to play quarterback in this league, right?
I don't know that ever should have happened in the first place.
Yeah.
It was weird with the COVID stuff, and he played one collegiate game that year. And
there was next to no sample size of him as a college player. It was
That's
a huge gamble on traits, and just at no point does Trey Lance look like a starting quarterback in the NFL. He's probably at the bottom of this list in terms of likelihood.
Yeah, I don't want anything to do with that.
Yeah, of course. The problem is Adam Gase hasn't coached in the NFL since 2020. Used to be, I guess, you could just figure out, all right, who did Adam Gase ruin?
Yeah.
And that player probably can be good somewhere. Yeah, Tannehill, Sam Darnold, Adam Gase, unfortunately, no longer in the league, so we can't do that exercise. But yeah, probably Zach Wilson. I'd say Mac Jones in New England, especially with the start that he had, an excellent start to his career. His rookie season was solid in New England.
My point with this, because we don't have to go through all of them, but you've brought them,
and Daniel Jones,
right? Like, these are places that ruin these quarterbacks. More than the quarterbacks failed. The quarterbacks did fail, but they failed because of their circumstances, from my perspective. That doesn't mean that they'll fail for the rest of their careers if they are put into better circumstances.
Yeah. Trey Lance was in the best circumstance, which is why he's probably at the bottom of this list.
So how do you improve upon the circumstances if you, the Tennessee Titans, are the worst team in football? And the thing that we're talking about here is arguably, maybe it's not the worst roster in football because they do have some talented players. I don't want to, bury them for no reason. Like, there's a conversation to be had between them and the Patriots and the Giants and among the worst teams in football, among the worst rosters in football. What do the Titans have to offer that these previous stops did not? because that's a very difficult thing for me to identify. Something that I would point out to you about reclamation projects that we've brought up is, one, low expectation. Like, let's just use Tannehill as the example because that Tannehill happened here. What was the expectation of Ryan Tannehill?
Oh, next to nothing, a
I had
backup.
zero expectations for Ryan Tannehill, other than he's a quality backup who's played a lot of starts in the league. And if, God forbid, something happened to Marcus Mariota, Tannehill can play well enough. I had no concept that Tannehill would go on to do the kind of things that he was doing. But also, what else is notable about these reclamation stops? All right? So, what do you got? You got Tennessee with Tannehill. You've got Tampa with Baker. You've got
Seattle with Geno and Minnesota with Darnold.
What do all four of those teams have, or in the case of Tennessee, had, that Tennessee currently does not have?
Oh, I mean, stability at head coach.
No. Make it about one thing. Make it about one position.
Are you going to say offensive line?
I'm going to say wide receiver.
Okay.
Ryan Tannehill had A.J. Brown. Sam Darnold had Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. Baker had Mike Evans, who's one of the best wide receivers consistently year in
and Chris
year
Godwin.
Out. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. Like, Amon-Ra St. Brown in the case of golf, if you're going to make golf one of these reclamation projects. Who is that person for the current Tennessee Titans? It's not going to solve all the problems, but if you're going to try and reclaim a quarterback, you've got to have one of these dudes at wide receiver that's going to make it easier, because not only did they have Tannehill in 2019, they drafted A.J. Brown that year. And that is, I mean, you can't do one without the other, right? Tannehill's resurgence doesn't happen without A.J. A.J.'s prolific start doesn't happen without Tannehill.
Yeah, which is why I don't think the Titans should be looking at any of those five guys we've talked about to be the starting quarterback.
I agree. But there is going to be some people out there who would be like, well, why can't you be the next reclamation stop? Right now, you're not in a position to be.
You know how Josh Allen kind of changed a lot of people's thinking on what is possible in terms of quarterback prospects having success?
He shouldn't have changed anybody's thinking. He should have just been, look at that unicorn.
Yeah, but that's not what happened. Anthony Richardson lit up the combine and, okay, we could do something here. And Josh Allen was thrown into the fire as a rookie and struggled, but grew out of it. And that's the fastest way to develop all of those things. And that has failed miserably with Anthony Richardson so far. And I don't know if it's going to get Chris Ballard fired. Right now, I don't know if anything could get Chris Ballard fired. But could Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, the reclamation project theory, I mean, how many GMs are those players going to get fired? To no fault of their own, right? But what GM's going to lose his job because he says, or head coach or whatever, because he says, oh, I can do what the Vikings did with Darnold, with Daniel Jones, or with Zach Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to happen to somebody.
Because somebody in the chat, Mike, the real Mike Jones, I assume it's not the real Mike Jones. Who?
I'm sorry?
You're supposed to say Mike Jones.
I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, I know. He says on YouTube, Calvin Ridley is the receiver that the Titans have. Calvin Ridley is not in the same class as the receivers that I just mentioned. Justin Jefferson, A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Now he's closer to, think about the guys that I named that failed. Carson Wentz, Justin Fields in Pittsburgh, got benched. So it's not that he failed, but he didn't capitalize on his second chance or his first opportunity post the team that drafted him. The best wide receiver that Carson Wentz had was who? Michael Pittman, who's a fine receiver, but he's not in the caliber that I'm talking about. Terry McLaurin in Washington while they were trying to figure out their stopgap situation. Obviously, Terry is good enough with Jaden Daniels because Jaden Daniels is excellent. George Pickens in Pittsburgh. He's a good player, but there are some things about George Pickens' game that you would like to iron out, essentially.
Oh.
We got news?
Tyler Lockett seems like he has been released, Robert, or he is just putting out a statement?
He's being released. Schefter reported.
Ari Myrov putting out the statement just seconds ago.
Yeah, the Seahawks are releasing Tyler Lockett.
Yeah, but Tyler Lockett is not who Tyler Lockett was.
Over 8,500 receiving yards, 61 touchdowns across 10 seasons in Seattle. They're releasing him rather than paying him his $17 million salary for this year, which included a $5.3 million roster bonus due in 11 days.
Bert, we would agree that Tyler Lockett is not the same Tyler Lockett that he used to be, right?
That is true. I still think he's an efficient wide receiver because of how he plays. Like if you've watched Tyler Lockett, you know he doesn't get hit. He always goes down early. He always goes out of bounds, which has saved him from a lot of hits in the NFL. Last year with 49 receptions, 600 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That's still effective, but you're correct. I wouldn't say that he's far removed from the 2022 season having 1,000 yards received.
Yeah, that's the lowest season he's had in terms of production since 2017.
Correct. He will be 33. Let me find his birthday.
32.
He will be 33 September 28th. Okay. So as the season starts, he will turn 33.
He has been remarkably available.
So and that goes to speak again about how he plays the game. So he could be an effective receiver going down the stretch for someone. He's not going to be a game breaker, not going to be somebody that you really have to game plan for.
Could he be better than Tyler Boyd?
I think that depends entirely on quarterback play.
Because he's an outside receiver, right? He's not truly slot.
I think it depends. You can kind of
move JSN around a lot.
Yeah, I would say Tyler Boyd could have been more effective last year had you had better quarterback play. So it's hard for me to distinguish where Tyler Boyd is, distinguish where Tyler Lockett would be here in Tennessee.
Man, just throw him on that list of just big name free agent receivers past the age of 30. Stephon Diggs, Devontae Adams, Amari Cooper, Tyler Lockett, Keenan Allen. It's a long list. Brandon Cooks. It's a long list at this point.
Is it weird that I'd still rather have Nick Westbrook-Akina?
No, and also he was totally slighted on ESPN's free agent list. I believe he was the 83rd overall free agent behind Deontay Johnson, who was kicked off of 2 playoff teams.
There's 2 things going on there. One, nobody knows who NWI is really outside of the state of Tennessee. I'd be prepared to argue that. 2, people don't watch the Titans outside the state of Tennessee.
I would just argue that whether you watch the Titans or not, he had 9 touchdowns last year. Someone that you argued was the best wide receiver and wherever the hell you thought he was the best wide receiver at. Despite anything, Deontay Johnson was kicked off 2 teams who needed wide receiver help, and you still have NWI ranked beneath him. That is egregious in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
Speaking of egregious, what the Lady Vols are doing to Texas A&M right now, they have doubled them up 60-30 right now.
Yeah, slow start, but they have recovered nicely.
First round of the SEC tournament that we are also keeping tabs of for you right now. It's in the 4th quarter with just under 9 minutes to play.
Yeah, winner plays Vanderbilt. By the way, I saw this from Emily Ray Cochran of WBIR in Knoxville. The Lady Vols hit a 3 to go up 30-19 in the first half. And per ESPN, they are now the 3rd SEC program ever to hit 300 triples in a season. So that's what they wanted when they hired Kim Caldwell. Is what they're getting.
Speaking of things that somebody wants, but maybe they'll get. Max Crosby wants Aaron Rodgers in Las Vegas. We'll talk about that coming up next. Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. The Lady Vols are just out here kicking ass. They've got 35 points off of turnovers, which is more points than Texas A&M has scored in the first round of the women's SEC tournament.
72-30.
What does Josh Pate say? It's a splattering.
It's a splattering.
It's a splattering in Greenville. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in before we talk about where a top NFL player is recruiting Aaron Rodgers or trying to recruit Aaron Rodgers to come play next year. Start with Jeff in Smyrna.
And I know y'all are talking about like having weapons at wide receiver, and I agree with you, but you're forgetting we got a secret weapon in Tennessee.
Yes.
Traylon Burks.
Oh, Jesus.
He's so secret, not even we've ever seen him produce.
Jeff.
Yeah, Jeff calling in just to take a pot shot at Traylon Burks.
I feel bad for him. Like I'm not slow to criticize players or people just generally. But like, I don't know. Anything about Burks now just feels gratuitous. Like I don't know what he's supposed to do. I mean, I know what he's supposed to do. He's supposed to be a first round pick, a wide receiver, but now, like, is it too soon for Traylon Burks to be considering opportunities outside of football? Like, is he another one that you think is going to get an NFL job just because he's a first-round pick? Because it's not Caleb Farley levels of disaster, because it was not just his body that failed him, but Caleb had so much personal tragedy that he had to overcome. And by the way, to his credit, like, so cool for for Caleb Farley to be on an active roster last year. He's worked really, really hard, especially for his hometown team in the Panthers. But
well, I'll tell you who will get a job is Christian Kirk, because Adam Schefter just reported that the Jags plan to release the 28-year-old receiver.
He's only 28?
28. He'll turn 29 in November.
You remember how shocked we were by that contract when he signed it?
Oh, and yeah, a couple years ago with the Jags.
Because that was while AJ was still negotiating, and we were like, my God, Christian Kirk got how much?
17 a year. His production really dropped off. He had a career low season. He also missed half the year, only played in 8 games, but 27 catches for 379 yards and a touchdown in 2024.
Is there any path forward for Traylon Burks as an NFL player? Like, I know that there theoretically is, but we've made the reference to the Doctor Strange Avengers movie where he's telling Tony Stark there's only one possible scenario in which we beat Thanos. Or whatever, spoiler alert if you haven't seen the movie. And, he's run that scenario 10 million times or whatever, and there's only one way in which we win. That kind of feels like Traylon Burks right now.
Kirk coming off a broken collarbone in Week 8. That ruled him out for the rest of the 2024 season.
What, do you have interest in Christian Kirk or something?
Someone will.
Yeah, I think so.
Again, only 28.
It's crazy that he reset the market at wide receiver at the time. And just now we're talking about Jamar Chase getting ready to make $40 million a year. That's the expectation.
Well, it wasn't that he reset the market. He just...
Didn't he?
I think he was just a top wide receiver in free agency.
And it was not the best free agent class.
It's not like he was the highest paid receiver in NFL history at the time.
No, but he had set a really high bar for what we expected, what the market might look like, because we were talking about AJ at the time.
Right. No, the bar was set much higher than we thought it would be for a player like Christian Kirk. But when I think resetting the market, I think, new highest paid Saquon Barkley, right? First $20 million plus a year running back. That's resetting the market for a player of that caliber. I guess he reset the market for a, sort of second tier receiver contract at the time.
As Calvin Ridley did, right? He was first gen Calvin Ridley.
Sure, but somebody will be interested in Christian Kirk, without a doubt.
The Steelers were at the deadline last year. His injury happened right before the deadline, and that's what he was. I believe Sports Illustrated reported that the deal was done at one point. So I'm not sure if that would have affected their cap space situation. He probably wouldn't have been released by the Steelers, despite having a $24 million cap hit this season.
So it's not as certain that Aaron Rodgers is going to get a job in 2025, though I think that's most people's expectation. It would be more surprising if he got frozen out of the NFL in 2025 as opposed to playing somewhere. And Max Crosby recently made an appearance where, Bert?
On his own podcast, The Rush with Max.
On his own podcast, The Rush, and talked about the idea of Aaron Rodgers in Vegas.
But it's a first year off an Achilles is one of the hardest things to do. You've seen it happen with Kirk. Kirk had a down year. It happened with Aaron. I mean, he struggled, like you said, early on, but he got better as the season went. I think with all the doubt and all the negativity around Aaron Rodgers, he needs to retire, things like that. You know, he's getting cut by the Jets. I think he's going to come back and have I know he's 42 or 41.
Are you going to say MVP?
No, I think he's going to have a big year this year, and I hope it's in our town. That would be
All right, I don't know who those other people screaming in the background are, but that's Max Crosby. Also, if we're going to have every athlete in the world doing a podcast, we need to have every athlete in the world with a microphone. Can we?
Oh, yeah.
It's hard to do that when Adam Schefter is out here doing podcasts and his camera phone looks like he's recording off a potato.
It's almost more excusable for Schefter because of his travel schedule. Like Max Crosby, you're doing it from home. Get a mic.
It did not really strike me until hearing Max Crosby talk about it, but doesn't that kind of make sense? Rodgers to Vegas? That's a team that was also in on the Stafford sweepstakes. It was the Raiders and the Giants prepared to pay a 37-year-old Matt Stafford big money. Stafford a better quarterback right now than Rodgers, I think we'd agree. But for a team that's not necessarily down for a long-term rebuild, Pete Carroll will be 74 in week 1. I would not be shocked. That would make sense to me. Aaron Rodgers going to Vegas.
Because it's not, like you noted there, it's not like they have a spring chicken at head coach. It's not a new head coach. Pete Carroll has been around the block a time or two. He would be able to handle this, even if it's just for the initial 6 weeks while you get a rookie prepared to play the second half of the season.
It doesn't mean that it can't happen, but I do think it's interesting that there's no noise around that whatsoever. Because
there's no noise about Rodgers really anywhere.
Which I think is telling.
Yeah, sure.
And maybe that's because, we don't know where in the world he is right now. Like, he may not be accessible, like, for Matt Stafford to just, according to Ian Rappaport, just run into Tom Brady at a ski resort.
Tom, is that you?
You ski here too?
Schefter also
They're on the
said
ski lift together.
They just do a double take. Oh my goodness, this is crazy.
Who'da thunk?
Schefter also said after the Lockett news that the Seahawks are releasing him that the Raiders would be a natural landing spot for him, obviously after playing for Pete Carroll.
All right. I think though that the Raiders are too public of an organization right now because Tom Brady being involved makes them too public. That if there was legit interest in Rodgers or recruiting Rodgers, I think we would have heard about it by now. It doesn't mean that it can't happen, and I get what you two are saying. It makes the most sense out of any of these places. It sure as hell makes more sense than the Giants.
Like, what options do the Raiders have? I mean, again, the demand greatly outweighs the supply of quarterbacks that can help you win now. So if you're the Raiders, you're sitting there at 6. I guess you could trade up for a quarterback. I guess you could reunite Russ with Pete Carroll. Or you could bring in Aaron Rodgers. I don't know.
If they were okay with playing Aiden O'Connell last year, I think anything is going to be an upgrade. They could sign Kirk Cousins, and it would be an upgrade. You know what I mean?
Saying, like, it's not. I know that the Jets had a bunch of problems that were not just Aaron Rodgers last year, but they lost more games with Aaron Rodgers than they did with Zach Wilson.
And also, to your point, if Aaron Rodgers had a deal where he was going to go to the Raiders, do you think he would be able to stop himself from blabbering all over the world about, I've got some pokers in the fire. I don't know why I made him a Southern rube, but
very odd that you did. You have to speak aloft and aloof and kind of far away from the.
You know what? We can rule this out. Vegas too close to home for Rodgers.
Too close to home.
He doesn't like his family.
Too close to the family.
Go to break.
It is 12:01. Good afternoon from the 104.5 The Zone studios. I'm Lucas Panzica. NFL news today from Adam Schefter. A couple of veteran wide receivers being released by their current teams. Schefter reporting that the Seattle Seahawks are releasing Tyler Lockett after a decade in Seattle, and the Jacksonville Jaguars plan to release 28-year-old wide receiver Christian Kirk, who missed half of the 2024 season with a broken collarbone. Meanwhile, the SEC women's basketball tournament is officially underway in Greenville, South Carolina. The Lady Vols routing Texas A&M 77-37 in the first round. To move on, they will face Vanderbilt tomorrow. Tonight, number 4 Tennessee on the men's side is at Ole Miss for an 8 p.m. tip-off. Fall Network coverage on the Zone begins at 7:30. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Final hour on this Wednesday. We're happy to have you. What does the NFL think of the Titans at number 1? The league at large. A lot of you guys get caught up in national media opinions of your team, and that's fine. You're entitled to do so. You're entitled to do whatever you want about your team. But what are they saying about your number 1 overall pick, and how far off base is it? Or how close to home is it based on what we are able to learn and who we're able to talk to here locally and spend, the better part of 3 hours a day talking about 4 if you want to count prime time. 615-737-1045 is the number if you want to jump in. You can do so also via the FNM Bank chat on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch. So do you want to start with the ones that are off base, or do you want to start with the ones that we think are closer to where the conversation actually is?
Where do you think people would want to start off? I mean, what is off base?
Well, what was off base to people probably was Mike Tannenbaum of ESPN, the former Jets general manager, now working in television and doing draft analysis for the 33rd team, coming on the show yesterday and saying the worst possible scenario for the Tennessee Titans is that Will Levis works out elsewhere. Because I don't think that's a thought in Titans fans' minds. I don't think they care. I think the Will Levis thing felt a bit doomed from the start, given where we are in the country, where Will Levis played in college, how much Vols fans enjoyed the idea of Will Levis not being good against them, and then how reactive they were to him playing for many of their favorite professional football team. Like, the Will Levis Titans marriage was going to be a tough sell. So I don't think that Titans fans give a single solitary damn about what happens to Will Levis in his career. For the most part, there's probably some out there. And again, other than he's a good person and I want to see good people succeed, like, I personally am not super caught up in the idea of what Will Levis is going to go on to do professionally.
So this is what we consider to be the off-base approach, is Rich Eisen talking about the intrigue surrounding the Titans in the number 1 pick.
The question is,
should they move it?
What do they think of Will Levis? That's the end of the story. What the Tennessee Titans do with the first overall selection is a window into their evaluation of Will Levis. Period. End of story. And you could sit there and go, well, it's really an evaluation of Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. Okay, because Will Levis was not a first-round draft choice. This is now it's rubber meeting the road right now, pretty much on Will Levis, and you could start the clock again with another year of contractual control on a kid. And is that player not as good as Will Levis? Okay, we'll take Abdul Carter.
So that's pretty off base.
Yeah, is that the number 1 question for us here? What do the Titans think of Will Levis?
No, because I know, and I don't know that Brian Callahan hates him. I think Brian Callahan likes the person. I think Brian Callahan wants nothing to do with the player. And I think that's pretty evident. Again, not publicly, but even publicly. Lucas, when have you heard a coach so comfortable pointing out the flaws in a player as Brian Callahan has been with Will Levis, or even like Nick Petit-Frere or any of them. I think Callahan does a lot of this it rankles some former players, certainly in media. I know Ryan Fitzpatrick took a crack at him, not a physical crack at him, but
what the bleep are you doing? He criticized him a little bit for that.
And was not a little bit. It was pretty strong wording about Brian Callahan's circumstance and the way that he was handling players, because I think first and foremost, the job of the coach is to protect the team, is to protect, them as one of the most front-facing entities of the team, to protect the team as a whole and, by extension, protect the players. It's tough to protect what Will Levis did last year because we all saw it. Like, it's damn near impossible. That's pretty far afield. In fact, I would argue it's really nowhere in our discourse as to what happens to Will Levis other than you thinking that he might not make it to training camp. Which I thought was a little silly.
No, he will make it to training camp. I definitely don't expect him to be on this team in week 1. Like, I don't expect him to factor in. Mike Borgonzi can say that he'll be a part of the competition, but Malik Willis technically was part of the competition last year, right? But Will Levis was their guy. So going into 2024.
Think about saying that phrase a year removed from that. Just looking around and be like, one did one a lot better than the other.
So that we do believe is the off-base part of the discussion.
Now, the discussion that's closer to home, or what we think is closer to what they're thinking, because at the end of the day, we don't have any real certainty on what they're thinking. Beyond, I can feel pretty certain about Will Levis not being a real part of the equation. I think that they are in a mode where they are comfortable playing a bit of a long game with the quarterback situation. Because I think at the end of the day, and I felt this before the Combine, I was entrenched in this position after the Combine, I believe that their greatest preference would be to trade out. Before drafting Cam Ward, before paying Sam Darnold, before whatever other scenario that you would present, I believe that their biggest or their greatest level of interest is in moving the number 1 overall pick for a package that they feel is sufficient. Agree or disagree?
Everything they have said has pointed to that. So, barring them falling in love with Cam Ward and believing with conviction he can be their franchise quarterback, then yeah. And that seems to be, Teron Davenport and Jeremy Fowler collaborated for an ESPN article about exactly this, just what they're hearing about the Titans and the number 1 pick. And they said a few themes emerged from talks with dozens of league personnel. There's 4 here. 1 is that Ward is the consensus number 1 quarterback in the draft, which we've talked about this week, even if Shedeur Sanders would be a slightly better fit for a Brian Callahan offense in Tennessee. Then they say those same people believe the Titans' 3 primary options with the number 1 pick would be Ward, Carter, and trading out of the top spot, not drafting Travis Hunter.
And I don't think it's in that order.
No, not in that particular order, but
yeah,
those 3, right? Travis Hunter aside. And Brian Callahan told us he believes Hunter would start out as a corner. As we've mentioned, there's never been a corner drafted number 1 overall in the draft's history. Receivers drafted number 1, very few and far between also. Keyshawn Johnson, Ross had that shout, I think, before the show. Keyshawn Johnson, I can't name another one off the top of my head. Receiver drafted number 1. I'm sure there have been some.
One does not immediately come to mind.
And then they say the majority of league personnel surveyed by ESPN believe Tennessee prefers to trade out.
Yeah.
And then they go on to say questions abound about how eager teams will really be to trade into number 1. The Giants and Jets are among teams that have interest in moving up, according to Dan Graziano. But some around the league question whether the talent in this draft necessitates a move, due largely to the lack of top-end QB prospects.
To your point about unless the Titans fall in love with Ward, Lucas, if they were in love with Ward, we would know. We would know at this point in time. I don't think you fall in love with, now that we're past the Combine and into free agency, I don't think you're falling in love with a quarterback right now. I don't think the 30 visit is going to be so over the top that they just, what were we thinking for the first couple of months of the pre-draft process? Or the pro day is going to be so spectacular that they're going to look around and be like, are we dumb? We should have been on this kid from day 1. You either fall in love with the player and then the Combine informs the level of love that you feel for the player. But if you haven't gotten to that point yet, I don't think you're getting there.
I don't see why it couldn't be a conclusion that you arrive at later in the process at every turn.
Because it's the difference between falling in love with and thinking, all right, we can work with him.
Yeah.
Because what you're saying, falling in love with is an extreme.
Yeah, fair enough. Falling in love with is Joe Burrow, who's a slam dunk.
Who they knew before the All-Star games that they were going to draft.
Trevor Lawrence, who is a slam dunk when he's coming out to be the number one pick to the Jags. It's okay. Fair enough. But it doesn't mean that that's not the conclusion they could ultimately come to.
They could come to the conclusion that they feel better about the quarterback than they might have initially felt. But I do not believe that they are falling in love with a quarterback at this late stage of the process. So we will get into the Darnold buzz because it's out there. Whether it should be or not, it's out there. And we will give you some additional information on that throughout the course of the show. Your phone calls are welcome. 615-737-1045 is the number. Should there be any buzz around Sam Darnold and the Titans? We'll talk about it next. The Tennessee Men's Clinic is here to help you as they have helped guys for over a decade deal with ED, and it's not a one-size-fits-all process. They're there to help you with all manner of different options, all manner of different protocols that they have in place to help you get the solutions that you're seeking, because a lot of guys lose hope and seek out processes like irreversible surgery to treat ED, and you do not have to go to those extremes, or you should not go to those extremes before you've talked to the experts at the Tennessee Men's Clinic, because they specialize in men's sexual health issues. It's all they do, and it makes them the experts in the field. They have access to multiple protocols and options to treat your ED based on your specific needs and what's going on in your body. So don't trust your health to an online pharmacy, and don't feel like you're out of options. The Tennessee Men's Clinic protocols are patient-centered and customized to your needs. They have treatments for everything from low testosterone, ED, treatments that increase size and stamina, and everything else in between. So schedule an appointment online today at TennesseeMen'sClinic.com for their Franklin or Midtown location, or call them at 615-208-9090. So we got a little breaking NFL news. Tyler Lockett is being released from the Seahawks. DK Metcalf is also requesting a trade from the Seahawks. That is Jordan Schultz of Fox Sports and Tom Pelissero of the NFL Network who are reporting that. That's a pretty significant player on the outs there. Also, like, what are they going to do with Geno? Like, I know they cleared a bunch of cap to prepare themselves for free agency, but I didn't think they were that keen on paying Geno's salary this year either. Now, I guess you wouldn't want to enter the quarterback carousel when the options are so, I mean, I don't want to say bleak. Bleak, I think, is unfair to the players that are out there, both in the draft and free agency, but it's not the best year to be a part of the quarterback exchange, for lack of a better term. I just thought that they might take a harder look, and maybe they will, it's still early, in Geno's contract at this point in time.
Yeah, 1 year left.
But here is what Ian Rappaport is saying about DK Metcalf. Requested a trade. The team has decided to explore it. There is likely to be significant interest in the Seattle star. Both sides will dig into it. A big-time wide receiver who will be on the move. Pelissero adds DK and the Seahawks met today, and the decision was to pursue a trade, Metcalf has 1 year and $18 million left on his contract, and any team giving up the type of compensation it would take to get him will likely want to do a new deal. DK Metcalf is not as good as A.J. Brown.
I agree.
So DK Metcalf is not worth a first-round pick swap plus. That's kind of the precedent that I use for that trade.
Pete Carroll is rubbing his hands together. Surely at least one of Tyler Lockett and or DK Metcalf ends up a Las Vegas Raider in 2025.
I could see that. And don't call me Shirley.
He literally got in my ear to say 1 sec.
I got something here. That's great. What movie is that from, Buck?
I don't know.
I thought even you would get that. That's brutal.
You need to watch it tonight.
That is brutal.
You're going to tell me the movie?
Nope.
So just Google Don't Call Me Shirley.
So that's where we're at with the wide receiver market that is getting more and more populated. I know that's not a free agent, but that's a wide receiver that is available to be had on the market this year. It's tough to go from the interest of the wide receiver market to the interest in the quarterback market. I'm so out on the idea of the Sam Darnold thing. Here, specifically.
You are surprisingly out on it, I think.
Why is that a surprise to you? So, Sam
I just feel like you think so little of Sam Darnold.
But I think what you're out on is the length of the contract. If, for whatever reason, Sam Darnold could be had on a 1-year deal, would you be interested? You just don't want to be tied to him.
Yeah, but no, Lucas.
But because you don't think he can replicate what he did last season.
Correct. Of course he can't. He doesn't have Justin Jefferson.
Justin Jefferson helps.
Yeah.
Justin Jefferson helps.
What?
Okay.
No, it's not that I'm out on Sam Darnold as a player. I'm incredibly impressed with what he did. It's commendable. I hope he gets paid. I don't think he's going to get paid what he thinks he's going to get paid. But I'm out on the situation that he would be coming to here. And I understand that's pre-free agency, so they can make some moves there, and it's pre-NFL draft. So perhaps they could fortify things around Sam Darnold, but I would be out on this situation if I was Sam Darnold. Outside of, can they pay me more money? And can I make more money because they don't have a state income tax? And those things matter. Those things absolutely matter to players because he hasn't really hit it on a contract yet. He's made a good amount of money. He's been in the league for a substantial period of time right now, but yet he hadn't really hit it, you know? So, no, I'm not out on Sam Darnold somewhere. I wasn't out on Sam Darnold with Minnesota except for the last 2 games, and that was enough for Minnesota to say, yeah, I'm good. I need to be able to win that game against Detroit at the end of the year.
Right. Again, 2 completely different situations. Minnesota is thinking about things very differently than how the Titans are thinking about them.
Sure. But I am out on the situation here for him. That is why I am out on Sam Darnold.
Sam Darnold, who, okay, let's look past the Viking sample size where he excelled last year. The last time Sam Darnold was on a bad football team was his time in Carolina, right? So would you take what Sam Darnold did in Carolina, which was, a 6-game sample size in 2022, but going 4-2 as a starter, 7 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. He only completed 58.6% of his passes, but that sort of ascended him into his role in San Francisco and then up to Minnesota.
I forgot about the San Fran stop.
Yeah, he was a backup in San Francisco. He hardly played.
Again, not for 4 years. You just gave me 6 games and then asked me to do a 4-year deal or a 3-year deal with Sam Darnold. No.
Dan Graziano projected offers on 7 significant free agent stars, right? 7 of the top available free agents. So for Darnold, he projects what he's doing in this exercise is projects 2 offers and then projects the decision. He projects an offer from the Titans and from the Raiders. The offer that Graziano projects from the Titans is 3 years, $120 million, $85 million guaranteed. He says this deal gets Darnold to the coveted $40 million yearly average. It offers an opportunity for him to be the starter for the next 3 years, and he would also get to re-enter the free agent market at age 30 to get another crack at a big deal, and the Titans can use more of their free agent funds and turn to the draft to complement Darnold while he attempts to prove himself capable of being their long-term answer. The other offer that he projects is from the Raiders, 3 years, $125 million, $55 million guaranteed. The decision that Graziano comes to is the Titans.
Ugh.
He says the higher guarantee swings it. Here, Darnold would have a little bit of concern that the Titans might also take a guy in the draft, leaving him to potentially get Kirk Cousined. But the Raiders bring that same concern.
God, if they signed Darnold and drafted a quarterback,
it's hard to imagine.
You'd be more pissed at the Titans than you were at the Falcons last year.
Which I did come around on the Falcons. By the end of the year, I was like, that was really smart. But he says that the guaranteed money would push it over the edge, and Darnold would still get to hit free agency at age 29 or 30 on just a 3-year deal.
Blech.
Here's the thing, though.
It's not my decision to make. It's not my money to spend. If it was me, hell no.
He doesn't have Justin Jefferson. But
nor that offensive line.
Okay, we act like the Vikings had a top 5 offensive line.
They had a better offensive line situation. Again, it
was bottom half of the league.
This is bottom 3.
I think part of that was the Darisaw injury, too.
Huge.
Right?
Yes.
Huge.
And I think he played some of his best games post-Darisaw injury.
He did. He had a great season. But am I going to bank on career Sam Darnold versus one season Sam Darnold? Hell no. The situation that he would be coming to here is far closer to the bad situations that he was in at the start of his career than what he experienced last year. I just don't understand why that's so hard to wrap people's minds around. Maybe there are more people who feel that way than I realize, but you have to consider the option. You have to have plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D. I get that. Okay. You have to be prepared because not everything in an offseason is going to go to plan. You have to be able to maneuver. They have to give themselves some wiggle room. But I don't know, man. I just don't want anything to do with a $40 million a year proposition at quarterback. One, I don't think he's getting that here. If he comes here, I understand what they're saying about the guarantees. The guarantees can shift that. But I don't think he's hitting that AAV. I would be stunned.
$40 million is a lot, but it's also about $15 million below the top of market.
No, it's 20
for
Dak
a quarterback.
60.
Yeah, that's right. Of course.
What is Dak's?
Dak.
What's Dak's cap hit, Bert? You said 78 something.
Something like that. Yeah, higher than it should be.
If that's the price that you got to pay for stable quarterback play, could he do what he did in Minnesota without Justin Jefferson? Probably not. Could he give you stable, competent quarterback play for the next 3 years? And is that worth it to you to be able to still exercise all your options in the draft of trading back, getting an Abdul Carter, adding to the receiver room? He's not going to show up to a receiver room with Calvin Ridley and nobody else. There will be other players there.
Tannehill.
Essentially.
Do you think most Titans fans, Tannehill was already somebody who they decried the contract and said, well, Derrick Henry got that contract. When Tannehill absolutely earned it. But you want to pay more for that level of quarterback play? Potentially. Tannehill had a more successful career leading up to the Titans stretch than Sam Darnold ever did.
For me, it's the only path, the only potential path towards multi-year stable quarterback play while giving you the opportunity to exercise every option in the draft to acquire capital and build out your roster. And that's what the money is worth to me. As opposed to, I mean, who else can even come in and give you stable quarterback play and allow you to trade out of one, acquire picks, get an Abdul Carter or a Travis Hunter, get a third-round pick that you need to continue to build out this roster? Jacoby Brissett, that feels like it could fall through the trap door and bottom out a lot quicker than Sam Darnold could, even at that price point.
Yeah, but at a certain point, and I don't advocate for tanking. Like, would you rather just have 3 years of potentially baseline quarterback play, or would you rather ride it out, take your lumps for a few more years, as I think most people expect the Titans to do, regardless of who's playing quarterback for them next year, and put yourself in the best possible position to succeed long-term by drafting, developing, and retaining your own talent? By the way, Alex Kappa is signing with the Raiders.
The former Bengals guard.
30-year-old guard.
So the connection there is the new Las Vegas general manager, John Spytek, drafted Kappa in Tampa Bay.
So there will not be a Brian Callahan reunion.
Nope.
With Alex Kappa. And then it is worth noting, Paul Kaharski reported that he does not believe the Titans will look to sign Darnold to a long-term pricey deal.
I don't think the front office will. I think that coach absolutely wants
Sam
Darnold-esque level quarterback play because he's the one in most danger here. So, again,
that's the thing.
If you're willing, they tell us that final say doesn't matter on certain things and titles don't matter, I think Sam Darnold is a great test of that.
If you're willing to bottom out for the next couple of years, then you might as well go ahead and make the coaching change, right? Because the coach isn't going to be here. If that's the case, if they do bottom out in the next
couple of years. If you're an organization,
yes.
If you're an owner who doesn't want to have egg on her face, no.
Yeah.
Because that, honestly, and it's, listen, Brian Callahan, I'm still kind of undecided on him. I know that I said I wanted them to clear house last year, and that would indicate that I'm completely out on him. But I'm willing to give a degree of grace because I understood. I watched it. I covered all of it. The level of quarterback play that he got last year. And I think that's a bad deal. I think it's a raw deal. I don't think they did a lot of things to get better. But there's only so much that you can do to stop the bleeding when your quarterback is the thing that's causing you to bleed.
Well, you're right that this is where the final say thing is huge.
Huge.
Because I also look at Mike Borgonzi here and the process he was a part of in rebuilding Kansas City.
Alex Smith.
Chiefs were in a similar position to the Titans, dreadful number 1 pick, and they traded for Alex Smith. They found stability there to allow themselves to address every other facet of the roster, including drafting an offensive lineman at the number 1 overall pick.
That was a bad draft, though.
Yeah, it wasn't a great draft. You go back and look at that draft.
Bad draft.
But
like they had no choice but to take Eric Fisher. And he had a solid career. He wasn't bad. He wasn't great.
But I put stock in that. The process Borgonzi was a part of.
Who has final say over Borgonzi?
Yeah. No, you're right. And that's where that matters greatly. But Borgonzi is in charge of putting together this roster.
Yes.
So how unified are he and Chad Brinker in this?
More unified than not, one would expect. Yeah. And you've heard both of those parties talk about this. But if you wanted to test that theory, you drop Sam Darnold at $40 million a year into the mix. And I think that would be a bigger point of contention between front office and coach than it would between front office member X and front office member Y.
I feel like it checks some boxes there to allow you to build out this roster and then strike when the iron's hot, so to speak, at the quarterback position in a move up when you're not as desperate for draft capital or you don't have as many roster needs as you currently do.
I'm not relying on Sam Darnold to make my football team better. I'm not. I want to mitigate the opportunity. I want to mitigate the amount of leaning I have to do on that position, understanding that I'm going to have to lean on the quarterback position. Obviously, it's the most important position. But can I reduce my risk by putting together the best possible roster around that quarterback? So even if I'm getting league average quarterback play, a la Ryan Tannehill, that league average quarterback can look significantly better than he ever has, and I reduce my risk that he can nuke me. Now, the Bengals game still exists. And in a one-game sample size, anything can happen. But in a perfect world, you're mitigating. I think most teams, unless, and we've talked about this, unless you have clear and obvious talent, at the quarterback position that you know definitively is going to carry you into the sun. And even then, most teams didn't know that Allen or Mahomes or Lamar, I think they had a pretty good feel on Burrow. But the other three, I mean, Lamar was getting ready to fall out of the first round. They took that damn tight end. What's his name?
Hayden Hurst.
South Carolina.
Over Lamar Jackson. The Ravens had to trade back into the first round to take Lamar Jackson, who was a 2-time MVP, should have been 3. So these opportunities will present themselves. I don't think it benefits anybody to get caught up in the recency bias of, okay, here's who's available this year. Here's who can get us to a point where we think it's reasonably functional next year. Long-term plan, give yourself some wiggle room. Sam Darnold mitigates the level of wiggle room that you have. Because then if you want to start moving money around, and the Julio Jones trade is the most recent example that I have for that, but Ryan Tannehill had the biggest cap hit in football for a couple of years because they decided they were going to lean more on Tannehill, move some money around to get Julio, go all in around that, and then when Julio didn't play, Tannehill was an anchor, and they didn't have the roster around him to support it, and we find ourselves, plus John Robinson's terrible drafts, we find the Titans in the situation that they're in because of a couple of critical moves that were built around a quarterback that wasn't good enough to elevate your roster. I don't believe Sam Darnold elevates anybody. I think Justin Jefferson can do that with a lot of people.
I do. I think you're very strongly to one side of Sam Darnold, that you don't believe he can elevate anybody. I think he's a better quarterback than I think you're taking away any and all credit because he played with Justin Jefferson. I also think we overvalue the Vikings offensive line.
No, I'm doing his career, Lucas. I'm looking at a quarterback that I covered in Ryan Tannehill who was infinitely more successful before and after he came to Tennessee. And I understand that things petered out at the end and that became a talking point or whatever in the Bengals game, blah, blah, blah. But I think he's closer to league average than he is to being good. And I'm not interested. If you want to do the quarterback thing, then get a better roster before you go after the league average quarterback.
Patience over panic, yes, is the mantra. But also, that doesn't necessarily mean the Titans are willing to, if they choose not to take a quarterback at number one overall, probably flounder for 1 to 2 years with Jacoby Brissett.
I don't think that they're going to flounder. I think that they're going to build a competitive football team that, again, mitigates how much they flounder based on lesser than quarterback play. And then when they're ready to make the quarterback move that puts them over the top, they've prepared for it.
Yeah, and I think you can do that with Sam Darnold on this team.
Disagree. In a couple of years, maybe. Not right now.
In terms of draft capital, paying Sam Darnold, again, they're talking about being selective in free agency. Paying Sam Darnold does not preclude you from gaining more draft capital and building around the quarterback position. All it does is, at a higher price point, yes, bring higher upside stability to the quarterback position than a Jacoby Brissett type.
All right, let's do the exercise this way. What did Jordan Reed come on here and say about Cam Ward and Mike Borgonzi? Or quarterbacks and Mike Borgonzi? Does Mike Borgonzi want to tie himself to Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders?
Right out the gate.
Does Mike Borgonzi want to tie himself to Sam Darnold, which is a way higher risk proposition than those two quarterbacks, who we do not have a sample size of, in year one? I would argue, hell no.
It's a fair question. I mean, I'm trying to think back to what the discussion around Alex Smith was coming out of San Francisco. He suffered a significant injury, I believe, at the end of his San Francisco tenure, but he did not live up to that number one overall pick billing.
No.
In his time in San Francisco. He played some decent football. He had some decent years, but at no point did Alex Smith play to the level of a number one pick quarterback, to where he's getting benched for Colin Kaepernick. So I'm just saying Borgonzi's
he got a concussion. He lost that job because he got concussed, and then Jim Harbaugh did the thing, which
and he just kept Kaepernick.
They're never going to do, which is we're going to lose. You're not going to lose your job because you got.
And he lost his job because of injury. Yeah,
but
he dealt with a lot of it. He was a pretty injury prone quarterback in San Francisco.
Sure.
But
was 12 Kaepernick's rookie year? No, surely not.
Let's see. Alex Smith missed the entirety of the 2008 season in San Francisco. He played, 11 games in 2009, 11 games in 2010, 16 in 11, only 10 in 12. So it must have been 12. It must have been 12. If he played in 10 games, that was his last year in San Francisco. So
yeah.
Borgonzi has seen this obviously work to a very, very high level in Kansas City. So I'm just putting some stock in that.
Well, you're also banking on them being able to trade the number one overall pick.
Yeah, I am. I'm going to be honest. I would be shocked if they don't have a suitor for the number
Oh,
one
no,
pick.
I think they have a
Yeah,
suitor.
I am banking on them having an
Suitors are
option.
out there,
Yeah.
but do they have the package that makes it worth it
Sure.
to them?
Sure.
That's the part of your scenario that I would also take issue with is they got to get the right offer before they move.
Sure. But if you have a quarterback, if you're signing a quarterback that you think could be a multi-year solution like a Darnold, then it's a little bit easier to move back to 3 for a little bit of a lower price point because you can still achieve all of those things. You can still get who you think might be the best player in the draft, like an Abdul Carter, and acquire more draft capital along the way. But also, JR on the FNM Bank chat says Gardner Minshew is the perfect bridge.
Oh, Jesus.
I mean, he's a better bridge quarterback than Jacoby Brissett or a lot of these guys that are available.
Listen, I'll do the Minshew thing just for the fun of it. Last year was miserable.
Yeah.
I'd rather have fun covering football than just drag ourselves around like
Doesn't
we
it feel
did
like
last year.
if you're going the Minshew or Brissett route, then you've got to have a rookie in there?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So
does anyone else feel like Aaron Rodgers is like the evolved form of Gardner Minshew? Like if they were Pokemon, like Gardner Minshew is like the starter form of that quarterback Pokemon, and then Aaron Rodgers would be the evolved form.
Maybe Minshew's just the southern version of Aaron Rodgers?
That doesn't fit into my Pokemon example.
Okay.
Bird already tried to make Aaron Rodgers Southern.
That's true, yeah.
I got too many pokers in the fire. Who's got some of that ayahuasca?
Last call for phone calls next.
Did you know you're overpaying for your health and wellness products?
With over 20 company-owned brands offering its members vitamins, supplements,
Two Rivers
wellness, and
Ford
skincare
is the
products, you're
South's
able to save
most
up to
trusted
70%
Ford dealer
off
for
retail.
a reason
Members
because
of
they
Tuesday can't
always
change your
have
life, but we can
great
change the way
offers
you
for
live.
you. Like this month is Truck Month at Two Rivers Ford, and I want to give a shout out to the #1 selling truck in America,
We've got
the
the
Ford
trucks.
F-Series.
All the
Ford
trucks.
F-Series trucks are
All the
literally the
trims.
best trucks on the
All the
road. They got the
towing.
durability,
All the
towing
bells and
capacity,
whistles.
and the
And
technology
all at
that
Truck
rolls
Month
right over the
savings.
competition.
Two
And
Rivers
when it comes to
Ford
Ford trucks,
is
no one has more
Ford
trucks than Two
Truck
Rivers Ford.
Central.
Right now, Two Rivers has over 200 F-150s in stock, all the trims, colors, and options. You can get exactly what you want at Two Rivers Ford, and they always sell their F-150s below MSRP. Everything is upfront and honest. Two Rivers prides themselves on doing business with integrity, and they even have a non-commissioned sales team, which means there's no additional pressure on you throughout the course of the car buying process. So take advantage of special Truck Month savings and test drive the baddest truck on the road at Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. Last call for phone calls, if you got them. 615-737-1045 is how you get in. Going to have a loaded show tomorrow. Goodness. We went from not doing guests at all to, have we had a guest every day but today, this week?
Yes, and a loaded show tomorrow.
Yeah. We have former NFL defensive lineman Henry Anderson. We have Titans CEO and president Burke Nihill, and we have Adam Sparks. We got a little Vols spring ball to talk.
Starts on Friday.
Exciting. Let's go to the phones. How about Peter, who's calling us from New Jersey?
Hey, Buck. Thank you so much for taking my call. I just had a quick question, and I apologize if you guys already touched on this. I've seen that the Titans hired Mike McCoy as senior offensive assistant.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to ask you guys, is there any connection to Callahan or anyone on staff, or does he have any connection to any of the free agent quarterbacks that are possibly available? And also, I just wanted to say, Buck, mustache is awesome. Don't worry about the hate. Thank you guys so much. Hope you guys have a great day.
Now, Lucas is just jealous because he can't grow facial hair. Like, that's what it really comes back to.
It is true that I can't grow facial hair.
That sounds like the guy that was walking around your house the other night when I was over there stealing your food from the pantry.
Walking around my house the other night.
Yeah, he was like knocking on the windows. Is Buck here?
Dad? Now, how can my voice do that but not sound normal all damn week?
We have not touched on Mike McCoy.
We have not. Mike McCoy is going to come in here, as he mentioned, as a senior offensive assistant. He was with the Chargers as their head coach from 13 to 16. He's been in Jacksonville for the last 3 years as their quarterbacks coach. I'm looking for, because the Chargers hired him after the Broncos, so maybe some Broncos crossover with Callahan?
He would have overlapped with Callahan in Denver, yeah.
Okay.
He was there from 2010 to 2012. That's in that window where Callahan was an offensive assistant in Denver.
So Mike McCoy.
That's that Tebow.
Right.
Tebow time.
All right, so there is your crossover with Mike McCoy.
Yeah, 10 to 12.
Is it Waters up next?
Correct, if I understood him correctly.
All right, we'll find out together.
Yeah, it's Waters. Hello, you got me?
Yeah.
Hello? Yeah. So,
hello.
Hear me out.
What's up?
You signed Darnold, you know, on a 3-year deal with the 2-year out or whatever. You know, trade back to 3. Get Abdul Carter. You know what I'm saying? And get your right tackle in the wide receiver. And if it don't work out in 2 years, you let go of Sam Darnold, fire Callahan, and take Arch Manning. It makes sense to me. So I just want to hear what y'all got to say about it.
Well, I don't want anything to do with Sam Darnold, and I think I've made myself clear on that. I understand what you're saying, but, like, I'm not interested in banking on a quarterback that...
The Las Vegas Raiders are signing defensive end Max Crosby to a 3-year, $106.5 million extension that includes $91.5 million guaranteed, making him the highest paid non-QB in NFL history.
Worth it.
This is from Adam Schefter.
All right, very good.
So we can probably kiss goodbye the idea of a trade involving Max Crosby.
Yeah, I would say.
If the Raiders are trying to get up to 1.
If you're ugly and you want a pretty wife, you're going to have to buy a pretty rock. That's what happened here. The only way you're going to keep him is if you pay him that money.
Just quickly to put a bow on the last caller's point, if you're firing Brian Callahan and firing Sam Darnold essentially after you know, in that theory, peter out on Sam Darnold, does Borgonzi not get fired? Like,
yeah.
Are we talking about if we're going to do the hypothetical of, we'll just draft Arch Manning. All right, who's drafting him?
Okay, but we can play that game all day.
I don't want to play
Draft
that game.
Cam Ward number 1 overall, and he's a bust in 3 years. Do you fire the person that drafted him? Like, you're going to be tied to whatever direction you go.
Well,
that's just what it is.
Unless you mitigate your risk and not tie yourself to a quarterback just yet. Are we ready to do polls? What else we got? I think that's it, yeah? I didn't know if you were going to update, there's somebody on the phone. I could take another phone call. Okay, well, that's why I was staring at you.
Presented by Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. What's the dumbest thing in sports this week? Caleb says people wanting the Titans to overpay Sam Darnold. So me. Brent says the boots that Buck wore to the stadium tour.
You don't want to overpay Sam Darnold. You're not advocating for that.
No, I just want a multi-year solution that is stable and competent and allow yourself the maneuverability to address all sorts of other roster needs. That is what I want.
I had the best looking boots on that construction site.
How are they looking, by the way? Probably pretty scuffed up, pretty dusty.
No, I took them to get clean. We're good.
D. Good says, Buck thinking he still has gainful employment at 104.5 after the inception of the Burton Lucas show.
I mean, listen, if we're doing buyouts, they got 3 more years. Well, actually, the third year or the second year of the new contract has begun. So you can buy me out for 2 years and 11 months.
Yeah, nobody cares about your contract timeline.
Cheaper and cheaper.
Which free agent quarterback is most likely to have a Sam Darnold-like resurgence in 2025? We put as the submissions, as the options, Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, Mac Jones, or Daniel Jones. Left out Trey Lance. Sorry, Trey.
Yeah, I'm good on that.
52.2%. The majority going with Justin Fields. No, 53%. A vote getting in at the buzzer there. 53% Justin Fields.
What, did it change in real time?
It literally shifted in real time. The final results just clicked in.
That's the one good thing Elon's done with Twitter.
31.5. I hate the decimals, though, on the Twitter polls. 31.4%. The second most votes go into Daniel Jones. 11% to Mac Jones. And only 4.5% to Zach Wilson.
I'm just assuming Fields isn't an option. I mean, there's nothing to say that he's definitively going to be back in Pittsburgh, but
it feels likely.
Wouldn't we all be all 3 of us would be surprised if they did not keep Justin Fields?
Yeah, it would just put them onto that pile of teams that were like, what are they going to do at the quarterback position?
Right? Like they don't want to deal with that.
No, I mean, they have an avenue, I would think. So, I mean, has Fields shown the most of those 4?
Name them again.
Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, Mac Jones, Daniel Jones.
Daniel Jones had a moment that was longer than Fields.
Going
he had
to the
a season that was longer than Fields.
Yeah.
So I would say
Mac Jones had an impressive rookie season.
Yeah, he beat the Titans.
Zach Wilson has shown the least of these 4.
Okay, so I think we've just made the argument for 2 of them over Fields.
Is Vandy men's hoops locked in to the NCAA tournament? 71% say yes, they are a lock.
I don't think they're a lock, but what did I say, 85% chance?
I would agree with 85%. They have Georgia. Yeah. Tough home loss to Arkansas last night, but they have Georgia Saturday. And then, of course, the SEC tournament in Nashville, which we will be live at in 1 week. I cannot wait.
They're playing clips of Max Crosby's podcast on there right now, and he does have a microphone. Why is his audio so bad?
On the Pat McAfee show. What if it's just not plugged in?
I believe it.
Just a prop.
Buck does the same thing on primetime, where he thinks his microphone is attached, and really it's just his laptop microphone.
Just a prop mic.
I have done that a lot in prime time lately.
What position do you most want the Titans to target in free agency? Darren says quarterback. Dr. Windrunner says yes.
Exceptional name.
Windrunner.
Love to have a beer with that guy.
Randy says edge and inside linebacker. They do have a huge need at off-ball linebacker, too. I mean, who's there right now? The freshly drafted guys from last year? Jack Gibbons still under contract?
I think Kenneth Murray.
Yeah, Kenneth Murray is still under contract.
Who they should cut.
John says offensive line. Jack says offensive tackle and edge. Ghost says offensive line, wide receiver, and safety. A lot of tackle submissions. Obviously, they do need a right tackle. Cam says right tackle. Only right tackles. Give me 11 of those. I'll Venmo to help out.
I bet Brian Callahan would agree. What is Dr. Windrunner's area of practice, Robert?
I would assume that he dealt in podiatry with feet if he is a runner.
It's a pretty safe guess.
Those are the polls.
Very good.
Don't the Vols play tonight?
8 p.m. tonight at Ole Miss, 7:30. Vol Network coverage starts right here on the Zone.
So tomorrow we could have an episode of...
Oh, no. Stop.
Lucas's Sec Dungeon.
You're disgusting.
Maybe.
Different kind of balls.
Oh, stop it.
Hate all of you.
I better play the new music. Sorry about that.
See you tonight on Prime Time.